News headlines at 3:30.
In your sports this hour, Paul Royals clash with Sunrisers Eastern Cape for a spot in the Betway SA20 final. Banyana squad named to face Lesotho and venue confirmed for HSBC Sevens Challenger 2025 opener. More details at 3:30.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? With Specsavers buy one get one offer, you get great value for money. You know you can trust us with over 350 stores nationwide. Get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand when you purchase a comprehensive eye test and spectacle frame with lenses on your first pair. Choose from top brands like Police, Hugo, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera and more. There really is no reason to go anywhere else. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll get a fantastic price for your car. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. That we can and we will never do. We have our own struggle which we are conducting. We are grateful to the world for supporting our struggle. But nevertheless, we are an independent organization with its own policy. And the attitude of every country towards our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle. Yasser Arafat, Colonel Gaddafi, Fidel Castro support our struggle to the hilt. There is no reason whatsoever why we should have any hesitation about hailing their commitment to human rights as they are being demanded in South Africa. Our attitude is based solely on the fact that they fully support the anti-apartheid struggle. They do not support it only in rhetoric. They are placing resources at our disposal. That is the position.
Well, we very intentionally started and played that clip by starting the show with that clip, because that sets the tone here for what we're going to do in the first half an hour of the show. This is the National Pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. Yes, I know it's Sona. Yes, we're going to talk about the state of the nation in many, many ways leading up to that 7 o'clock address by the President of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa. But part of all of that is, I suppose, what is he going to say, not just about internal relations, but South Africa's external relations? And that brings me squarely to talking about the clip I just played, and to bring up our first guest, the SABC News International Editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, good to connect with you, as always, on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Thank you. So, we're talking to you and played that clip, which, for those who may not remember, it's Nelson Mandela, not yet the president of South Africa at that time, speaking to Ted Koppel in the USA on their mainstream television at the time. And the point that he made is about, your enemies are not our enemies. And that brings me to this point, Sophie, that would you say from where you sit that whatever's happened at this point in time between the USA and South Africa, is it primarily based or premised on South Africa's foreign policy? I can think about the Middle East, with South Africa's position with regard to Palestine versus Israel, with regard to the Ukraine, the ongoing issues with regard to Cuba, and there were other historical issues. But let's say specifically those.
Yes, it's because of the foreign policy. And that foreign policy, where America see problems, it then affects the economic policy or trade relations, because you then want to use your trade relations to respond to what you are not happy about as it relates to the foreign policy. We know that you would recall that even during President Biden's administration, we saw that tension, even though it was handled much better through diplomatic channel, but also not using social media to make certain announcements. But the war in Ukraine, we differed with the US in terms of the approach. The Middle East question, South Africa took a decision to use multilateral institution to try and intervene. And now, unfortunately, because in the country you have interest groups, some are resisting transformation, and they will always call upon the friends who share the same ideology and principle in these powerful nations to support them. You'd recall AfriForum did go to the US and campaign talking about how white farmers are being killed during the the first term of Donald Trump. And of course, there was that standoff war of words. So it's a continuation of that, the foreign policy being center or right.
So,
you know,
it's interesting you say that. I mean, because at the same time, of course, the USA is talking and commenting on South Africa's internal policy regarding land. So, it's their external policies and their positions too. And we can think of other things too. But would you say, like, and I know you've said yes already, but what convinces you to say emphatically that whatever we're seeing from America right now, the reaction is a reaction to South Africa's foreign policy, particularly, Israel, Palestine, and maybe Ukraine, Russia too?
Well, I think South Africa surprised many. Madiba spoke. It was in words. Ramaphosa acted. He went to the International Court of Justice and exposed the friends of the United States of America. And they were laid bare, naked there, in terms of what came out of the presentation of South Africa. So you can't take that light, because Israel is a close ally of the United States of America. So it has to do with our stand as a country in terms of peace and security, and the foreign policy that's anchored on human rights, peace and security.
But so is it not fair to say then, Sophie, that whatever South Africa's position regarding its relations with its allies around the world, that crossing swords with the USA is terribly naive, keeping in mind that the USA is not just a major trading partner, but is also a major funder of projects in South Africa? So meaning, is South Africa not being naive in coming up against the USA?
South Africa didn't provoke USA. South Africa was implementing its policies, the national policy, to redress the imbalances of the past. But that didn't sit well with certain groups in the country who have friends who are in these countries. So the lobbying led to that. South Africa is implementing its policy as it relates to the Palestine question, which is an international policy of striving for peace and security around the world using the multilateral system that were established. For countries to go to when they have issues.
Well, I'm going to certainly pick up on your point about and moving on to the U.S. Secretary of State in just a moment. But, for those that don't know, we played that initial clip between Nelson Mandela and Ted Koppel where he was really saying your enemies are not our enemies, meaning you can't expect us as South Africa to side with you against other countries when those other countries are our friends, for example. So that was then a long, long time ago. Now, once again, just to prove the point that it's not unusual for South Africa and the USA to differ on huge foreign affairs issues, other positions have come to the fore. And the one that was very, very interesting, right, is that Cyril Ramaphosa, the president in 2018, responded to Donald Trump, at that time the president for the first time round, who then spoke about land and farm seizures, and the context of that was the first visits by South Africans, specifically AfriForum as well as Solidarity, to try effectively to lobby their position around what they seen as land seizures or potential land seizures in this country at that time. That was 2018. So what is it, 7 years ago? In fact, at that time, Ramaphosa said this. Okay, I think we're just battling to play that, which there's some network problems. A huge pity on that one there. We'll try and see if we can play one of the others later on. But Sophie, then to go back to you, I know you've given your example about South Africa's position. I'm still saying, from a practical point, is South Africa not being impractical in its relations with others that will effectively put them against the USA? Because that is the basis of why we're having this conversation right now, because there's an economic fallout based upon the friends we keep.
South Africa will have to engage in diplomacy to explain to those who are not happy about decisions taken by the government or the policies implemented. It does happen, as you point out, where countries don't agree on certain matters. I mean, for example, you're talking about Mandela. That was not the only issue. You'd recall during the Iraq War, yes, he was out of office, but again, he uttered very strong words to George Bush during the invasion of Iraq. On the other hand, at that time, the sitting president had sent the nuclear inspectors to Baghdad or to Iraq to check whether did Saddam Hussein have the weapons of mass destruction. And the scientists came back and said, no, there's no such a thing. And Thabo wrote a very strong memo to Bush and Tony Blair, even though they ended up defying him, and they went in there. And today, look what's happening to Iraq. So it's not new where you will always have these differences, but it depends on the leader in office. And you can see with Donald Trump, we are not the only ones. It's not only South Africa that's having challenges with this new administration. I mean, Canada, they are neighbor, next door neighbor. Look what he did there, the decisions he took. Panama, Mexico, even the European Union, China. So it's not only South Africa.
Yeah, clearly. But the question is, how then do we respond? Let me talk about that, including those comments from the Secretary of State regarding G20, and we'll do that right after this.
My business is very stressful. Construction and plumbing, anything can go wrong. The reason I chose OUTsurance because they align with my vision with regards to customer service. The fact that they won the award for best business insurance makes me feel like I'm in the right hands.
Switch to Business OUTsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Don't Don't miss out. Make every day a payday with the guaranteed 1 million rand Daily Lotto jackpot that's waiting to be won. From just 3 rand, play Daily Lotto now for your chance at the guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old and play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
X at SFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, with me, Sophie McQueen, as we effectively look at South Africa's international relations, or whether South Africa's foreign policy in this case is under threat, particularly with reference to the United States of America. So, with hindsight, we're looking at South Africa versus USA, the relations, the good, the bad, the ugly, perhaps maybe the past, the present, and the future as well. Sophie, interestingly enough, you spoke about the tensions between the USA and South Africa, even around the Tony Blair issue, and you made reference to that, right? So at that stage, South Africa's president at the time, Nelson Mandela, effectively spoke about that, and this is what he had to say.
Both Bush as well as Tony Blair are undermining an idea which was sponsored by their predecessors. They do not care. Is it because the Secretary General of the United Nations is now a black man? They never did that when Secretary Generals were white. What is the lesson of them acting outside the United Nations? Are they saying any country which believes that they will not be able to get the support of the countries which are NATO are entitled to go outside the United Nations and to ignore it? Or are they saying we, the United Nations, are the only superpower in the world now? We can act as we like. Are they saying this is a lesson that we should follow? Or are they saying we are special? What we do should not be done by anybody. And if there is a country that has committed unspeakable atrocities in the world, it is the United States of America. They don't care.
And that's, for those who say, well, why are we so hard regarding the USA, that's Nelson Mandela, the person who just about all South Africans revere, and people around the world say, well, that man was on side regarding human rights issues. Sophie, before I come back to you, let me do this. I'll play the clip that we couldn't play earlier on, and that related to South Africa's president, current president, 2018, Ramaphosa, responding to the American counterpart, Donald Trump, with regard to land and farm seizures. 2018, this is what Ramaphosa said.
This issue that Donald Trump fears so much, we offer this question of the land. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do with South African land, because he's never been here. And he must keep his America, we will keep our South Africa. That's what he must do. South Africa is our land. South Africa belongs to all the people who live here in South Africa. It does not belong to Donald Trump. He can keep his America. And Ene is even worse. He is even worse. When I meet him, I will tell him. I will say, you, Donald Trump, you are even worse, because your forebears came to America. They found the indigenous Americans. They wiped them out. They killed nearly all of them. Rine, we are living as a nation, and black and white, we are going to find solutions for our land question. So Donald Trump must leave us alone. He must leave us alone, Bauri. When we were facing apartheid, when we were facing oppression, he was not here. He did not fight side by side with us. And we were able, on our own, yes, with support of progressive forces in the world, to resolve the apartheid question. As far as I recall, Donald Trump was not around the negotiating table when we negotiated the end of apartheid. So stick around there in the White House. We will do our business here, and we will find solutions for our problem. So stay out of our issues, and we will not get involved in your issues in America. You have your own problems. Leave us alone.
Well, that's such an interesting sound clip, Sophie McQueen. I'll tell you why it's interesting, because often President Ramaphosa is accused of like sitting on the fence, of being very, very muted in the way he responds. That's one of the few times, I think, in his entire presidency where he literally said what he wanted to say up front against the president of the USA at the time. Now, I mentioned that because we have the sonar today. Do you expect him to use some part of the sonar to respond directly to Donald Trump once again and the USA?
There is no way he can ignore that, because you would recall after that post by Donald Trump what happened to the markets and to the rand. And therefore, this is the first opportunity to set the record straight, allaying fears, but also asserting the foreign policy of South Africa, but also the national policies, because America has a similar policy where, I mean, it was only a few weeks ago where Donald Trump said Elon Musk can have shares on TikTok. No? Even in terms of the tariffs, saying if these countries don't allow American citizens and business to have a stake in these companies that have invested in their countries, he's going to impose tariffs. So that's what's happening when you redress, but you look at the interest of your nation. And therefore, with President Ramaphosa, I focus mainly on his international work. Mm-hmm. What I have observed is that he might be very soft, or I don't know, the way you have characterized him on national questions and South Africans, because this is the people he is about. But at the global stage, he has taken tough decisions. Even in terms of when he's addressing, he takes a tough stance. Have you forgotten his address to that special conference in France, where he said, no, you can't all the time think we, the South, developing South, we are beggars, you know? So that's what he has done, ensuring that you are able to defend your foreign policy and the autonomy and independence of the country, and the sovereignty of the country.
All right,
but at the end of the day, the diplomats will then have to do the work to clean up this mess. So Ibrahim Rasool and the envoys, Dr. Muhammad, will have to fly back to the US and look for his counterparts. Ronald Lamola will have to engage his counterpart, the Secretary of State. They will have to clean up this blood on the floor.
Well, interesting. Let's a quick answer to this, because we're on to news time, to then just confirm what the Secretary of State of the USA, Marco Rubio, said today, this morning or last night. I will not attend the G20 summit in Johannesburg. South Africa is doing very bad things, expropriating private property, using G20 to promote solidarity, equality and sustainability. In other words, the DEI and climate change. My job is to advance America's national interests, not waste taxpayers' money or coddle anti-Americanism. Right, so Sophie, just in 30 seconds, that's what's happened, right? How you spoke about the diplomats who need to do the dirty work and clean up, right? How do they save this? Because there's ideological issues, but you want the practicality of saving the relationship. How do they do that?
In terms of the coming meeting of foreign affairs of the G20 in 2 weeks, America is not going to be there clearly. So there's nothing to save there, but it's for long term. And when people are talking about G20, I was always skeptical about Donald Trump coming here. Down south, you know what has been the issues and his views. But of course, everybody was hoping that because of the G20, you can use G20 because America is the incoming to kind of undo the damage and strengthen the relations. But this is where we are, and I think the president will try and speak to that and many other issues, including DRC, even though he's not going to delve much because he's going to that meeting in Tanzania.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what he's finally going to say at the State of the Nation address. Sophie Makwena, SABC News International Editor, appreciate your input. And, of course, to the audience, let's have that audience engagement. I want to hear what you have to say. 086 000 2032. WhatsApp, you know the number by now. You should. 0614 104 107. Or you can tweet us. Let's get your thoughts. Let's get the news headlines now. It's just gone 3:30 years on Della.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, steel producer ArcelorMittal says it has no desire to continue with operations even if its closure has been postponed by a month. A Kimberley man linked to the killing of a 76-year-old pensioner in Galeshewe will undergo psychiatric evaluation before his next appearance in March, and Rwandan-backed fighters are holding a rally in the Congolese city of Goma for the first time since seizing it last week. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Johannesburg, the M2 westbound in Crown has delays towards Main Reef Road, and the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg slow moving towards Crown Interchange. In KZN, Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place, and traffic lights not working at the M7 St John's Avenue and the M13 highway. In Cape Town, the N7 checks Havel Drive southbound in Epping has road surface damaged reported as you approach Jakkelsvlei Road, so you're asked to expect delays. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Kuburg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Shumi, your mind is on cricket and what, that SA20 final coming up on Saturday, isn't it?
Yeah, and teams are still vying for that final spot, and it's up for grabs when the Paul Royals take on Sunrisers Eastern Cape in Qualifier 2 at SuperSport Park. Royals have had a tough patch after becoming the first team to secure a playoff spot. That was like 2 weeks ago, and they have suffered 3 consecutive defeats even ahead of today's game. Sunrisers, on the other hand, won over Joburg Super Kings in the eliminator, and now are 1 win away from a place in their 3rd consecutive final. So a lot to play for today, and the game starts at 5:30. In football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has named a squad of 22 players for a training camp during the upcoming FIFA Women's International break later this month. None of the regular senior players have been called up, while the overseas-based players are not considered neither. Banyana will face Lesotho in 2 friendlies during the 10-day period to assess and just look at the upcoming players, also giving them a taste of the senior team's training and their tactical expectations. Meanwhile, Ellis has also invited 8 goalkeepers for a specialized camp from the 15th to the 17th of February, and that list will be trimmed down to 4 who will join the rest of the 22 players for the rest of the training camp. Meanwhile, still staying with football, Chippa United head coach Thabo September has confirmed the return of the dynamic technical staff member Morgan Mamila to the club. This marks his 3rd tenure at Chippa United, where he has previously served as the CEO, head coach, technical director and assistant coach. Now with the CAF B license in hand, Mamila has been listed as the 2nd assistant coach on the team sheet during yesterday's match, where the Chile boys secured a decisive victory over bottom place Magezi FC at Seshego Stadium, and September has expressed his enthusiasm about Mamila's return to the club.
Yeah, Mox, we were coming to fetch him here in Polokwane because he's from this side. So the plan was arranged before that, and he couldn't sit on the bench against Polokwane City, but we were always communicating about how he can help us, and we're happy that he came back to give his advice. So yeah, he's going to play a big role, especially on the technical side, and of course off the field. He's a good group manager. I think he helps us in terms of managing the team to get us into good fluidity. So yeah, it's good to have him back.
Elsewhere, the Premier League could punish players for celebrations that mock others if they feel that they are damaging the reputation of the game or could aggravate opposition fans or players. Now, the league will now monitor celebrations, with the news coming after some players received criticism after mocking. Iliman Ndiaye received a yellow card after he scored Everton's winning goal at Brighton and then celebrated through flapping his arms like a seagull, while on the other hand, Miles Lewis Skelly received no punishment for mimicking Erling Haaland's celebration. In the meantime, Brazil defender Marcelo has announced his retirement from football at the age of 36. The left back, who is one of the decorated players in history, played 58 times for Brazil. And after coming through the ranks of Brazilian side Fluminense, Marcelo joined Real Madrid back in 2007 at the age of 18, and he won 25 pieces of major silverware in 15 years at the Bernabeu, including 5 Champions League titles and 6 La Liga titles. What a legend. In tennis, Matej Bellucci produced a shock win against second seed Daniil Medvedev to reach the quarterfinals of the ABN AMRO Open in Rotterdam. The 23-year-old had never beaten a top 10 player before, but knocked out Medvedev with a 6-3, 6-7, 6-3 win in 2 hours and 52 minutes. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
So what's the story about this Premier League protest or regarding celebrations? I need to get to this thing.
Yes, so they're going to start monitoring celebrations of players after they score to see if they are offensive in such a way that it might aggravate the other fans when they are on the field. I think for me, the issue is you guys must decide if you're going to punish the players or not, because some are punished and some are not.
But did they give an example what they mean? Like,
yes, like remember when City was playing Arsenal, and Miles Lewis Skelly, after scoring, did exactly what Erling Haaland does when he celebrates. However, it was taken as if like, oh, it's a light moment. Yeah. And then when Everton's side, Ndiaye, went and mimicked his arms like a seagull, he got a yellow card.
Because they played Brighton or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're the seagulls.
So according to the Premier League, that is aggravating the fans.
So do you agree or don't you? You're pausing. Okay. Think about it. Let me know. I'd wonder. I'll tell you what. Can you imagine if you get a fine for emulating the opposition and the way they score? They score a goal, you score a goal. Next time you're not even allowed to equalize. Look how bizarre is that. Now that will get me thinking about it, right? You think about your response, more sport in an hour's time.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
V-up your 2025 with Vodacom Business and Galaxy AI. Save up to 20,000 Rand with trade-in when you pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra 256 gig on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for just 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal with the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM for 69 Rand extra per month. Available in-store and online. Further together. Vodacom Business.
The National School Nutrition Program and social grants are instrumental in ensuring that children's needs for food and other essential services are met. We need a minimum health promotion levy of 20% on all sugary drinks to support social protection initiatives. Find out more on the next episode of Chew on This at heala.org, HEALA.org, on 30 January from 3 p.m.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
By the way, I must tell you that, today is the SONA, the State of the Nation address, which starts at 7 o'clock. But as part of that, there'll be a special SONA broadcast here on SAFM from 6 p.m. tonight. So this show ends at 6, then we move to the special broadcast. And Koketso Sachani will be broadcasting live from the Cape Town City Hall, which at this point in time is the symbol of Parliament until they move into the actual House of Parliament, so don't forget that. Right, let's move on. We'll get to your calls in a few minutes' time. Lots of people wanting to talk about many of the issues we raised, particularly around South African foreign policy and whether we are paying the price for our relations with the USA based upon our foreign policy. Would that be the number one issue, or compare that to the land issue that we have certainly discussed in the last couple of days as well? Right, let's then look ahead to a particular aspect of the SONA, because if the SONA is a scene setter for what we expect for the year, one of the most important issues has got to be the economy. So let's talk about the economy. With me is Mielani Holeni, who is a local government expert with specialization in revenue management, governance, infrastructure delivery, and economic development. Mielani, I appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
Thank you. So we're going to speak about focusing, I suppose, on the economy and revenue generation, right? What do you expect? First of all, what are your thoughts about the state of our economy?
Well, I think the state of our economy as of yesterday, I think we can talk about, the fact that, there are green shoots which are starting to emerge, and partly because of the fact that, the stability of government has proven to hold, as well as the rand-dollar exchange has at least, been kinder to us in terms of where the rand has performed much better. But the World Bank, has projected, quite an interesting statistic of growth from projecting that the economy is likely to grow at 1.8%. And that is from 0.8%, which was largely projected. And that is something that, can carry the momentum into the medium term for the economy to grow at about 2%. And of course, that is a projection, but it starts to bring some positive news around at least the growth, from an economic point of view. Currently, we know that our economy is struggling with high unemployment. We're struggling with not completing the structural adjustments that must have been completed. And so we're not relatively at this stage where we should be.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the 2%, because for many countries, 2% is just not good enough. Yet for South Africa at this point in time, that would be a massive leap from our even lower GDP growth in the last few years. What sort of intervention is required? Because I'm going to suggest it can't just be a case of slowly. It needs a serious intervention to kickstart or to jumpstart our economy so that we can have the type of numbers of GDP growth that we all want.
Yeah, I think on the back of the energy constraints that we've seen, and at least, with some semblance of good results, of having kept the lights on for about 300 days, the energy situation in this country is one of the biggest constrainers of economic growth. And broadly, if we talk about infrastructure as well, that would need to be unlocked from an energy point of view, and also going to the water side, because water becomes very important as well from an agricultural point of view and produce and agribusiness. So in essence, the country has to unlock a lot of the infrastructure constraints, that, also on the transport side, with regards to making sure that, the railways are working, the ports are working. And secondly, we need to look at, a concrete, plan of how to manage, public spending. But more than managing public spending is to look at, avenues of how to grow the revenue that comes into the state, beyond just looking at the tax, the excise duties, as well as customs, revenue, but to look broadly as well into, the permits that government has to issue out, and make those to work, a lot more in the favor of the country, so that it becomes not just a minor revenue generator, but, a significant, chunk of what the fiscus would be made up of.
Okay, so therefore, outside, your wish list, what do you think is actually going to happen? What would the president say about the economy and economic growth tonight?
Well, I would hope the president would look at, the whole integration of this economic policy or initiatives across the national, provincial, as well as the local government. We know that, there's a lot of efforts, at the national level with driving economic growth, but seldom do you find that translating and trickling down into the local economies. I would hope that there would be more investment or more money or budget, or at least, an intent to increase, the spending that goes into building initiatives on the local level to encourage manufacturing, as well as to attract, investors, at that sort of level, so that municipality by municipality, there is a clear plan of what kind of investment and investors are required to come in, and to facilitate the incentives. So that, they don't, end up, just at high level, but they are specific, right down to things like property rates, electricity, water, and ensure that, the town planning process moves as well in tandem with...
And you're still there?
I'm still...
Okay, I thought we just lost you for a sec. Where would the money come for the investments? Because we speak at a time where, when we look at public funding, when we talk about hospitals, the big issue is, well, we don't have funds. When it comes to education, we don't have funds. When it comes to doctors getting jobs, we don't have funds. But that story is repeated across the board. Where does South Africa then find the money to be able to fund the type of day-to-day expenses and investment that you talk about?
Ashraf, the issue of public-private partnerships, which is bringing in the private sector, is a crucial one. The Minister of Finance did announce last year that the regulations for PPPs at national level should be ready by January. So we're looking forward to seeing all of that, and should be ready around June or July. So that is how you facilitate, at least for private sector, to crowd in. They sit with now over R1 trillion in terms of savings that they are holding back because of not having avenues to discharge the money that they are sitting with into various projects, and lack of clarity with regards to how to participate in the large infrastructure builds and the large presidential projects which have been identified. So the issue here is that there is enough money, but it requires stronger partnerships which are more certain and driven by a stronger economic policy or underpinned by a strong economic policy that allows them to play a role.
And do we have evidence of, a clear partnership between private and public plan that will work? I mean, of course it's happened already, but if you're saying it needs to be accelerated, are there specific plans in place or that you know about?
Well, I think the areas like under the National Treasury, the OGTEC, sit, with a number of intentions or applications for PPP projects. What we've seen is that the kind of projects that were promoted were around office accommodation for government, but we've also seen the likes of, hospitals like, the PPPs, within hospitals. But you also want to see that going into dams, going into energy, going into transport, going into roads, and going into all of that infrastructure which is economic in nature, as well as the renewable energy side, or energy side of the economy. So that is the kind of projects that could come in. So those plans, would need to be registered and put forward, through the GTEC and fast-tracked, Currently, we have what is the application through National Treasury, which only covers the financing through the fiscus, but the Triple P process needs to open up to have a greater and a deeper pool of resources coming from all the private financing institutions.
And certainly everybody will be watching the SONA with different lenses, looking at what is important to them, right? So therefore, just as we end up now, a very quick answer with regard to the economy. If there's just one thing you'd want to hear the president pronounce on, what would you want to hear him say?
Well, I think the issue of the special economic zones, the industrial development zones, those need to come to life, because that is the lifeblood of local economies and the areas where they've been proclaimed in. He needs to put more effort and more, at least, impetus and more policy as well as resources into driving the special economic zones and the industrial development zones so that, they become functional and drive the economies in their region.
Okay, and that's where we can leave it. Appreciate your time. Eye on the SONA. I'm sure at 7 o'clock, Mielani Holeni, the local government expert with specialization in revenue management, governance, infrastructure delivery, and the all-important economic development. Right, let me engage with you right after this.
Are you looking for the best spectacle and sunglass deal? At Specsavers, get a free pair of branded prescription sunglasses up to 3,200 Rand. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Action is getting tougher in the second half of the league. The Folks want to ease off pressure with a win, but the Eagles aim to fly with 3 points to remain in the top 5. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Mönchengladbach FC versus Eintracht Frankfurt FC on Saturday, 8 February at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Our story is a South African story.
Anchored in the belief that it takes all of us to build a country that thrives.
To educate our children for a brighter future. To care for our health and well-being.
To nurture our environment to sustain future generations. And to transform and build a stronger nation.
When no one is left behind. Inspiring each other to succeed. Anglo-American.
Right, you'd think reheating leftovers would be quick, right? But somehow they're still cold. Back in they go, and then still cold by the third time. Well, you just eat them anyway. But you know what? Faster than reheating leftovers, you know what it is? Well, getting your car covered online with Santam. It only takes 2 minutes, yeah? To switch, visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, let's get to your comments. Janus in Cape Town. What's your point?
Good morning, Ashraf. People are talking about misusing all these Trumps, and Ramaphosa say they're not going to be the distribution board without any punishment. We remember Zimbabwe, what happened in Zimbabwe. At the beginning it was fine and not a problem, and then suddenly the politicians, Mugabe, changed his mind, and we know what was the result. So we can expect something like this because it's approved, and we cannot trust the politicians. I'm talking about the Trump as well. In the USA, they're removing the affirmative action because unemployment among the blacks and Latins are about 5%, not like here in our country, about 32%.
Okay, but what's your point? I'm failing to understand. What's your message to us today in the context of what we're talking about?
Okay, my message is that I think we're going to be slightly better because something had to be giving up. Whether affirmative action had to be removed because it cannot protect. Affirmative action by definition is to protect the minorities group, not majorities group. So I think after all these people who will come with the 20 countries, top countries, when they will see the truth about what's happening, that actually our government, other government don't provide sufficient support, they will have a change.
All right, thanks for that, Janus. Affirmative action you're saying should be removed. Okay, but I don't agree with the last point you're saying. It's there to protect minorities. I think affirmative action can be applied to different people in different parts of the world for different reasons. They could be even calling it different names, okay? But at its core, it serves a certain purpose. Well, as it's called, affirmative action, to affirm, right? Whether it's for minorities only, I somehow doubt that very much, right? Okay, Imbuyisa and Ladysmith, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Ashraf, how are you?
I'm good indeed, right? What's your point?
I'm fine. You know, my point is that I just want to allay the fears of South Africans. You know this thing of Trump. You know, Trump is only in office only for 4 years. And then what I'm looking at is that I can tell you in that 4 years, Trump will not be doing anything for Americans because he's more obsessed of international communities. I'm going to deal with this one, I'm going to deal with this one, I'm going to sort this one out, forgetting that his mandate is to look at the interest of the Americans. Now, actually, he's looking at the interest of the minority civil society, AfriForum. Trump, I'm telling you now, he's not going to revoke his decision with regard to funding South Africa, because even those who are saying Trump deal with South Africans, they are the beneficiaries of Trump's funding.
Okay, so you're saying he's just barking, he's not going to bite?
He's just barking.
Okay.
Just barking. You know, there will be South Africa after 4 years of Trump as regime.
Okay.
And yes, that's what I want to say.
All right, let's see. Is Trump just barking and not biting? Let's see what happens. David in East London, what's your thoughts?
Good day. It's about the NHI, which I'm pretty sure will come up.
Yep.
I was at Fria yesterday, getting some stitches taken out of my head and my lip.
Oh, sorry, man. Sounds painful.
Cancer.
Sounds painful.
That's all right.
Oh, okay.
Not a problem. I just want to give kudos, first of all, to the doctors. But my main thing is this. All public servants, that's government, municipal and provincial, should be forced almost to go to public hospitals, like Fria and all these other public hospitals. And the reason why is this. The conditions of equipment, they try and get it up to standard. And I don't say this stuff is below standard, but the amount of doctors needs to be increased, definitely. The equipment, up to date, supplies of everything they really need. So if it's mandatory that they've got a medical aid, and if medical aid is going to work with government, like we understand, or maybe I don't quite understand that, then there's going to be public hospitals. But if people want to still go, and this is the general public, of course.
Okay, I'm going to push you quickly just to make a final point here.
Well, it's just that the service it'll be better for everybody.
Okay. Well, I hear you. I mean, thank you for that. I think many people have said so that, in fact, elected public officials need to actually ensure that they use public spaces all the time. Public schools, public hospitals, public everything, so they have a full grasp, in fact, of service delivery or the lack thereof. Thanks for that, David. Right, Mike and you, let's go for it.
Sure, thanks, man. I just want to comment on the interview with Sati McQueen.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, perhaps I can put it to you this way. You know, if you find I'm on hard times and you lend me 1,000 rand a month and you say, Mike, you don't have to pay it back, and then I go and the next month I go and badmouth you and insult you and call you names, and then after that I then go and find who your enemies are, and then I make those enemies of yours my friend. It's not going to take long before you, Ashraf, are going to come back to say to Mike, hey, Mike from Newlands, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you any more money. And that's all that has really happened here. America is $2 trillion in debt. They are no longer going to fund countries like South Africa, which have racist laws and which are going to expropriate property without compensation. We can't call it anything else, Ashraf. And we must just keep one thing in mind. I keep stressing this, and South Africans don't seem to understand that the ANC puts South Africa second. Trump has put
but Mike, you see, the ANC part, you say that every time. I think your first analogy is very important. If we just stick with that, I think it's important, because that's a question I asked Sophie to say, is South Africa not being naive? In fact, in earning the wrath of incurring the wrath of a trading partner that they desperately rely on. I'm not even discussing the policy. I'm saying, so your point is valid, right? That yes, if you're going to badmouth a friend, you could get into serious trouble.
Ashraf, that's a great point. Now, all I'm saying is this, that we have a lot of money in this country. I'm actually not of the opinion that we need America's help. You know, we waste billions, we lose billions, and I think the best thing that's going to happen is when we lose AGOA and when we lose the funding for our HIV funding, the ANC is going to have to seriously stop stealing money, and they're going to have to spend the money that they take and spend it on the people, and I think we'll be a better country for it. But we can't keep going on like this because the land is going to be expropriated. And by the way, 197 farms have already been identified.
Mike, you're saying too many things. It works best when you give one solid point. I'm telling you that. It just works better when you say, like, your first point is profound. It's great. It makes complete sense to me. As far as the ANC, and I mean, they themselves have spoken about, pilferage within their party. The question is, at this point in time, the ANC doesn't run the country. I think it's about time we remember that. It's 4 o'clock. Let's get the news. Here's Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Police investigate a case of double murder in Gqeberha, and Ramaphosa called on to address the deployment of the SANDF in the DRC. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. Eastern Cape Police are investigating a case of double murder after 2 men were fatally shot at Motherwell in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. Police spokesperson Sandra van Rensburg says yesterday they responded to a complaint where they discovered a silver vehicle with multiple bullet holes and the bodies of 2 male occupants inside.
At this stage, the motive for the attack remains unknown and no arrests have been made. The Provincial Serious and Violent Crime Investigation Unit is pursuing all leads to establish the circumstances surrounding the shooting. Police are appealing to anyone with information that could assist in the investigation to come forward.
The following story may upset sensitive listeners, including children. A Kimberley man linked to the killing of a 76-year-old pensioner in Galeshewe will undergo psychiatric evaluation before his next appearance in March. Daniel Lowe, who is related to the deceased, appeared in the local magistrate's court today for a formal bail hearing. Lowe is accused of beheading Letty Lowe in her home. He remains in police custody. Police community members who attended the proceedings say the law must take its course.
We want justice for everything that has happened. We are not against the family as we are standing here. We are here in solidarity with the family, but just want justice for what has happened to the old lady who has been brutally murdered.
This is the second old lady who's been killed the same brutal manner because of drugs. We must face the cancer. The cancer is drugs. So as a woman of this Northern Cape, as a woman of South Africa, we say enough is enough.
Steel producer ArcelorMittal says it has no desire to continue with operations, even if its closure has been postponed by a month. The company earlier announced that it has delayed the closure of its long steel business amid ongoing interventions with government to find a solution to looming job losses. It had announced plans to shut down its Newcastle and Vereeniging operations. At its financial results representation in Vanderbijlpark today, it revealed that it has suffered a headline loss of 5.1 billion rand in 2024. ArcelorMittal CEO Cobus Verster.
A Section 189 notice has been issued and the consultation process regarding the large-scale retrenchment process has commenced and is continuing. The Longs business will only continue with structural changes and financial support that will be underpinned by a long-term sustainability of that business, as the company does not have the appetite to carry any further financial risk associated with the continued operation of that part of the business.
Some residents in Polokwane, Limpopo are calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to address the deployment of the SANDF in the DRC. President Ramaphosa is delivering the State of the Nation address tonight. 14 South African soldiers were killed in a battle between M23 rebels and the DRC army in Goma 2 weeks ago. The minister in the office of the president, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, said that government has updated the families of the fallen soldiers regarding the process of repatriation. This resident says the president must provide more information on the DRC matter.
What were they doing?
My question is,
What are they doing in DRC? I do not understand their mission in DRC. My question is, what is the delay for them to be repatriated? It's been 2 weeks. How do you arrange the funeral when you have nothing to bury?
The M23 fighters are holding a rally in the Congolese city of Goma for the first time since seizing it last week. Large crowds blocked roads around Unity Stadium, where the M23 rebel leader Corneille Nangaa is expected to appear. The UN says almost 3,000 people are thought to have been killed during the takeover of Goma. The BBC's Jewel Kirungi has more.
The rally comes a day after the M23 rebel group launched a new offensive capturing the mining town of Nyabibwe. Nyabibwe is about 100 kilometers from Bukavu, the second largest city in eastern DR Congo, which the rebels are targeting. Earlier this week, they had announced a ceasefire on humanitarian grounds. The UN says almost 3,000 people have been killed since the fighting started. Leaders from the Southern African Development Community and the East African Community will be meeting in Tanzania starting Friday to discuss how to resolve the crisis.
Recapping the top story, Eastern Cape police are investigating a case of double murder after 2 men were fatally shot at Motherwell in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. I am Mondela Mbano for SFM News headlines at 4:30. In sports, the Sawasari to appoint independent financial advisors to plot future and Sundowns World Cup trophy to Kloorkop. More detail at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N14 eastbound in Diepkloof has delays after the R512 Malibongwe Drive exit, and Houghton Drive southbound in Parktown has delays towards Kaas Oghori Road. In KZN, the M4 northbound has a stationary truck reported near Broadway Durban North exit, and the M19 eastbound in Reservoir Hills has a crash reported after the Dunkeld Road exit. In Cape Town, the M3 inbound, the M3 Philip Gosana Drive inbound, and the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard inbound will all be closed from 5:45 until 8 p.m. for the SONA 2025 event. Baden-Powell Drive in Strandfontein has sand reported on the carriageway at Coastal Park, so proceed with care. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Reigning champions and log leaders Masanda Wana have a massive task to deliver maximum points to Kloorkop. But the Buccaneers are eyeing the top spot. They want to paint the capital city in black and white. Miguel Cardoso is up against Jose Rivero. Ukhono Zokhala. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 8 February at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And thank you for connecting to the National Pulse. I wonder what your pulse rate's telling you today. We have a very clear focus on the State of the Nation address coming up just now, but linked to that, of course, is South Africa's foreign policy, an issue we've been discussing, and whether our foreign policy has been the primary factor behind the USA's hard line against South Africa at this point in time. We'll be chatting to Brian Molefe, representing the MK party, pretty shortly. Let's, however, get some of your thoughts based on the conversations that we've had earlier on.
Afternoon, Ashraf. The so-called American politicians, they must know that if we have problems in Africa, we will solve them our way. In short, I can say African problem African solution. That's all. Mathematical Islam Park, Tembisa, thank you.
But I mean, quite honestly, have we solved our problems? We can think of 1,000 problems we haven't solved. I mean, let's be sober about it.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I think South Africa does not need America.
Let me sort that out. South Africa
anymore. We are part of BRICS with China as one of our powerful partners. So we are not going to do anything that Trump tells us to do. We are not going to compromise our policies just to please him as if he was our master. Thank you very much, Peter Baila Machaba from Letswata.
Thanks for that, Peter. But you see, you're linking up South African policy with economics. My question is, the Chinese example, how clear are we that they're going to give us enough billing and support and trade that will effectively compensate for the losses that we may incur with regards to the USA?
Hello, Ashraf. Very interesting topic. I think the things we need to come to terms with is, for sure, we can tell the world what we think. We can support who we want to support. No one's going to tell us who our friends are, but we just need to realize that with some people who we used to do business with or do business with or receive donations from might not like that and might cut them off. And if they do that, then we've got to paddle our own canoe and work it out. Peter in East London.
Thanks for that, Peter. I think you're quite right, and I'm trying to be sober about it. I'm not suggesting in any way that I agree with American policy to South Africa. Not at all, actually. Right? I think they're over the top. But in trade, even South Africa treads on eggshells regarding Russia and China. They do that. All right, we chat to Brian Molefe of the MK Party after this.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So this time round is going to be very different, isn't it? Because it will be the very first State of the Nation address that cannot be an ANC-led State of the Nation address. It has to be a GNU-led multi-party State of the Nation address. How that plays out at 7 o'clock, we will wait and see, isn't it? For now, let's get some thoughts of others. So in that case, in the same light, the DA is not the opposition party or the official opposition any longer. Not at all. In fact, that title goes to the MK Party. So with me is Brian Molefe, who's a member of the MK Party, of course, an MP there. Brian, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
It's a pleasure, Ashraf, and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Good afternoon indeed, right. So, first of all, let's clear this up, right? I understand the former president, the leader of your party, I understand he was supposed to be there today, and I understand he's not going to be there. Can you confirm that?
Yes, it does seem like he won't be there, and but I am not privy to the reasons as to what has happened.
Okay. I mean, just as an aside, Mzwanele Manyi made the point that he would have liked to have attended, but he had to attend a court appearance in Pietermaritzburg and suggested the judiciary wanted to keep him away from Parliament. Any thoughts on that?
No, if that's what Mzwanele Manyi said, then that is what he said. So it must be so.
All right, let's talk about you and what you say. What are your expectations as the opposition for today's State of the Nation address?
Look, the single biggest problem that is confronting the country at the moment is unemployment. The National Development Plan had estimated that, or had a target of reducing unemployment to 14% by 2030. In 2024, the unemployment was supposed to be at 22%. Instead, it was at 32%. For us, it is quite critical that that disjuncture, that anomaly, the president must address it head on. We would be very disappointed if he does not announce measures to drastically reduce unemployment. Unemployment, if our concern about unemployment is a concern about our brethren, are we our brothers' keepers? Our brothers and sisters who are not employed, who have to toil every day and suffer every day and watch their children go hungry because they don't have a job. So for us, that is the single most important issue that needs to be addressed. I mean, there can be a lot of English and all sorts of pontification about all sorts of things. The fact of the matter is that South Africans need jobs, and that is very, very urgent.
So what, in your opinion, should be the mechanism to address this problem? Because clearly at this point in time, and you're quite right, the trajectory for the unemployment rate is going higher, and the trajectory for the employment rate is going down. So clearly something's not working, right? What needs to happen?
Well, we'll wait and see and hear what the president says. But if it were up to us, we would ramp up the training of artisan skills, of the training of artisans. Because if you train somebody to be a plumber in a township, they then generate employment for themselves. There is always somebody who needs a plumbing job to be done, an electrician, a mechanic, those kinds of skills. The problem in South Africa is that we have a lot of people that are unemployed, and yet we have a lot of vacancies of jobs that are available. We just don't have the skills to fit into those jobs. So it is a matching exercise that the government needs to do. We need to train people for specific skills. You know, Ashraf, the Port of Durban needs all sorts of skills that are scarce, and yet unemployment in Durban is very high, and nobody's being trained to become a tug master, to become a manager, an admin manager in the port, to become some engineering, marine engineer, and so on and so forth. We have an Aerotropolis there in Johannesburg at the OR Tambo. How many people around Kempton Park, Tembisa, Ekurhuleni, how many youth are being trained with a view to becoming aviation mechanics and people that will work in the aviation industry? And I think that is the unfortunate thing that is happening in South Africa, is that we are not producing the skills that are supposed to fill the jobs that are naturally there in the economy.
Okay,
So
but I think that's an important point. I mean, there's this educational skills mismatch. I mean, you're not the first person to say so. I think many of us say so, but yet it continues, right? How? I mean, do you have any sense? And I understand that you're not government, right? But do you have any sense? On the one hand, you're the MK party, but you also want what's best for the people of South Africa, which means at this point it'll have to be the government and not your party, right? Do you have any sense that government has an appetite to be able to listen to people like yourself regarding addressing this skills mismatch?
I hope they do. I hope they do, because I watched over the December holidays as the matric results were coming out. Firstly, these matriculants were passing in subjects like geography and history and physics and maths and so on. And all of them want to go to VETS. All of them want to go to UJ to do a BA in this and a law degree and this and this and that. And nobody's talking about becoming a pilot or going into... We don't have a single aviation high school in South Africa. Other countries do. We don't have a marine high school, a high school that trains and prepares children to become... to work in the marine industry, in the ports. Countries like Netherlands, Belgium, and so on have these schools, have these high schools. In fact, some years ago, Transnet did start one school in I think Simonstown, which was a high school for training children to become to work in the ports.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that point that you bring up, right? But again, it therefore, are you still there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. You know, therefore, it brings into question the creation of an ecosystem. That means the universities you mentioned, WITS and UJ, they can't work as silos on their own. Then you've got business. Then you've got those that effectively develop infrastructure, not just in terms of the buildings of education sites around the country, but also in terms of looking at curriculum. If we're having these mismatches, and of course I'm talking about business who ultimately employs them, right? Do you have any sense? I mean, we've had job summits. I've been program directing a couple of them a long time ago. Do we get a sense that nothing's really working, which means it requires a very dramatic change in thinking?
I think the questions that are phrased in these summits and in these conferences are not phrased properly. And so the results and the answers that come out of the conferences are wrong. The point of departure our problem is to acknowledge that in working life, in a company, for example, there's certain streams that are semi-independent. If you take a company like, let's say, Eskom, you have the admin side, the people that make sure that the accounting for the electricity that is paid is done, and that the books are done, and that the HR policies are in place, and that the people's leave is managed. And those are skills, the HR management, legal skills, and so on. Then there's the technical side, the engineering side of things. And the technical side of things, there's professional engineers and engineering technicians. And even below the engineering technicians, the people that are just trained to be that have a trade. I forget the name now. When you have a trade, that you have a skill to assist to operate a particular valve, not necessarily to make it or to fix it when it's broken, but just to operate it. And then there's the engineering technicians, and then the engineering professionals who look at the superstructure. So it's two sides of the company, and our education and training is focusing on the admin side and not on the technical side, which is why we are not making things.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up. Just a quick 10-second answer. As the opposition party going into the State of the Nation address, would your party's interest best be served if the president delivers a very good, powerful address, or is underwhelming? Quick answer.
We cannot prejudge the State of the Nation address before it is delivered. Our judgment of it will be objective after we have had it, and we will express our opinion after we've had it. So we can't say. Maybe he will surprise us and say things that are correct. But
and that's where
however, experience is that it is unlikely.
Okay, Brian Molefe, thanks for your time from the MK Party, an MP at the MK Party.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Billion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, let's. In fact, we'll get to. We'll take more of your calls just now, but just some of the comments. We must be careful as the U.S. has all the cards, and Pretoria must expect more responses from President Trump regarding this matter and others. We need to remember that this depends on many support from Washington. Anyone who thinks that this is a must, think again, because the poor, not the populace, thinking in Zimbabwe and many countries are struggling because of ignoring the U.S. warnings and power from TG, right? And here's another one. Cyril's rant sounds like Mugabe when he told Tony Blair to keep his England and he would keep his Zimbabwe, and we all know how Zimbabwe ended up. Okay, it did sound very, very familiar and similar, absolutely. Okay, let's get on to another issue as we build up to SONA 2025, and that is a focus on environmental issues. There's big issues where the environment, if it was a small issue of our lives or in our lives 20, 30 years ago, it's not that case any longer, isn't it? So Brandon Abedno is with me, the head of the Pollution and Climate Change Program at the Center for Environmental Rights in South Africa. Brandon, good to connect with you once again here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the listeners.
So here's a thought. I mean, it sounds almost bizarre saying so, but I'm going to suggest in the light of massive unemployment, labor issues, threats coming from the USA, poor economic growth, that the temptation would be to relegate environmental rights to the bottom of the priority list.
Yes, I can see why that temptation would be there. I think we must remember that we come from a history where environmental rights were not, in fact, protected as they should have been. And that did not translate into development for all the people. I mean, we still sit with these crises of unemployment, inequality, poverty. So the idea that a high carbon or an exploitative economy really benefits and develops is false. Whereas if we do tackle a lot of these things, particularly with the climate crisis, there are opportunities that can be unlocked. But at the end of the day, the destruction that is already happening and will intensify is not really a negotiable. If we carry on with business as usual, we're going to end up seeing the very fabric of life and the ability to even have an economy fatally impacted.
Okay, now we know, unlike, for example, Donald Trump, South Africa is very on-side as a signatory to the Paris Agreement. And therefore they would attend all these various COP events. Having said that, what are your expectations then with regard to the environmental issues that you'd expect the president to be talking about today?
Thanks, Ashraf. Well, we'd like to see an even more sort of renewed commitment or recognition of the severity of these crises and the commitment to tackle it, recognizing the severity of the water crisis and the intersection there between the service delivery failures and climate change, because they sort of hammer our water resources from two different angles. Pushing hard on decommissioning with coal. I know we can't switch it off overnight, but we need to clean up that electricity generation, really get behind renewable rollout, and renewable energy that benefits people and communities and not just businesses. We'd like to see an increased commitment to mainstreaming climate response across government, including in budgetary processes, so that municipalities and other organs of state, for example, are adequately resourced for the adaptation. And that includes decision-making and policy-making. I mean, just this week we had Minister Mantashe in the cabinet speaking about coal being back.
Yeah.
So we can't have, the high at the top level talk of commitment to do what needs to be done, and then sort of these rogue elements that cling onto the past.
So when you talk about, some clear evidence of a commitment to climate change issues that South Africa understands and mainstreaming it, right? What would be an example of you seeing that it is being mainstreamed? What would happen?
Well, I think an understanding, there's so many decision makers in government that have to deal with climate change in some form or another. So really seeing climate response being centralized in budgetary processes, ensuring that especially far-flung municipalities, for example, really are equipped both from a financial and a technical point of view to be able to respond. I mean, it's these municipalities that are at the coalface that deal with the climate impacts such as floods and so on. And I think it's going to take a lot of sort of upskilling of people within government so that they can understand the crisis and the kinds of measures that need to be taken. Yeah.
And so that is in terms of your hope, right? What do you actually expect?
Yes. Well, we do expect some of these things to be said. I think the messaging has gotten better. But whether the decision-making becomes coherent, I don't know. We'll see. We're seeing some pushback. For example, the sort of climate change impact assessments. There's proposals to dilute it, that we don't need to do full assessments for seismic testing. And that testing is basically to be able to produce more fossil fuels. And the truth is, the fossil fuels, we can't have expansion. We need to see quite a rapid reduction.
You want to see reduction, and that's a whole another debate. Brandon Abedno, let's leave it at that. Thanks for your time. Head of the Pollution and Climate Change Program at the Center for Environmental Rights in South Africa. Some comments from you. The world is a funny place. We're listening to Molefe addressing us with the issues affecting the country with his history at Eskom. I don't believe it was even necessary to request an interview with him. In fact, he's an MP representing a political party in Parliament. And that's the basis of the interview. That's why we have to get them to front up and If he's their man, then he's their man, isn't it? That's the way it goes, right? There's further comments as well that I just want to pick up on. Okay, there's just something here that we can't quite read right now. Let me just remind you as well that around, by the way, tomorrow, on a Friday we have this fireside chat, right? So tomorrow's fireside chat guest, and we speak to someone of prominence, and we tackle a whole range of issues with that person. Tomorrow my guest is Tony Leon. So that should be quite an interesting one, and get his thoughts on a whole range of global and national issues in South Africa, and of course post the Sona. Tony Leon from 5 to 6 p.m. tomorrow. 4:30, here's the news headlines with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, ArcelorMittal South Africa is set to announce later this month the outcome of ongoing talks with the government to save the Long's business from closure. AMSA has delayed the closure of its plants in Newcastle and Vereeniging by a month after receiving funding support of 380 million rands from the IDC in the form of a shareholder loan. Some residents in Polokwane, Limpopo are calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to address the deployment of the SANDF in the DRC. President Ramaphosa is delivering the State of the Nation address tonight. And Eastern Cape police are investigating a case of double murder after 2 men were fatally shot at Motherwell in Gqeberha. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hose.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound and four-ways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N3 southbound in Lindbro Park has a crash before Marlborough Drive. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillilees interchange. Winnie Mandela Drive northbound in Hurlingham is slow moving towards Republic Road, and the N1 northbound in Midrand slow moving towards Samrand Road. In KZN, rain across the Greater Durban area, so please proceed with caution on wet roads. The M4 northbound is queuing towards Virginia Airport, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound queuing towards Hospital Bend. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards the M5 Kuburg interchange. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound has road surface damage reported approaching Yakkelsvlei Road, so expect delays, and the M3 both ways queuing towards Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Hi, Tumi. You want to start with what, I suppose, the business of rugby?
The South African Rugby Union now are going to appoint a financial institution to review the rugby's financial ecosystem. This is according to the union's membership, who decided at a general council meeting in Johannesburg today. Members mandated the executive council and management to initiate a new process following their failure to reach the required 75% majority of a private equity investment proposal by the Akeli Sports Group in December. The first step in the new process would be to appoint the financial institution through an independent selection process to advise members on all aspects of rugby's financial sustainability and the role that a potential private equity investment might play. Then in football, Mamelodi Sundowns have become the first club to welcome the Club World Cup trophy to Africa. The new trophy is on tour around the world to all countries that have representative clubs before heading back to the host nation in America. Today, the trophy is in Kloorkop. Then tomorrow, it will make its way to Semi-Mark Square in Pretoria. And then on Saturday, it's going to be at Loftus Stadium on the D Field. So if you're a Masandawana fan, you can head there for picture opportunities and also for player appearances. Meanwhile, Andy Bueli, Machine Atugral, and Lucas Ribeiro Costa are winners of the Betway Premiership Monthly Awards for January 2025. The three walked away with the Betway Premiership Player of the Month, Coach of the Month, and Goal of the Month accolades. Atugraw's 3 victories out of 4, including 2 successive wins over Soweto Giants, Kaizer Chiefs, and Orlando Pirates, saw him emerging as the number 1 contender from Sekhukhune United FC coach Lhlono Siema, as well as Phuti Mohave of Polokwane City. And the Betway Premiership Goal of the Month award went to Costa Costa for his acrobatic strike against Magesi FC in Polokwane. Elsewhere, Manchester United defender Lisandro Martinez has suffered an ACL injury in his knee, which is set to rule the centre-back out for the rest of the season. The 27-year-old was taken off on a stretcher late on during the home defeat by Crystal Palace. Well, with Coach Ruben Amorim describing at the time that it is a serious situation, and these news, they come at a time when there are renewed doubts over the fitness of left back Luke Shaw, who has not started a game for United in almost 12 months. In cricket, Marcus Stoinis has announced his immediate retirement from one-day international cricket, leaving Australia needing to replace the all-rounder in their Champions Trophy squad. The surprise announcement is another blow for the world champions Australia ahead of the Elite 8-team 50-over tournament, which begins on the 19th of February in Pakistan and Dubai. All-rounder Mitchell Marsh has already been ruled out with a back injury, and captain Pat Cummins is likely to be sidelined by an ankle problem. So a lot of issues for Australia. And finally, in tennis, Emma Raducanu has received a wild card entry in the Qatar Open, which is the first WTA 1000 event of the year. The British number 2 reached the third round of the Australian Open before being beaten by Igor Swiatek. On that note, it is a wrap from my side.
And did you work out now whether you're in agreement or not regarding those celebrations?
I just feel like there are more important issues to worry about, but hey, if they see it important, perhaps they just don't want to find themselves in a situation where fans are just rowdy at a stadium.
Well, I mean, here's a comment from Brian Mabai from Project Glen saying, Ashraf, about soccer players' celebrations. There was once a Kaizer Chiefs player, his name was Caleb Binyanyama. He scored a goal against Orlando Pirates in the Soweto derby. He did a celebration sign of the Burundi national flag, which in our local football represents Orlando Pirates' sign of the bones. So we were all very confused at the FNB Stadium, but I didn't know that in South Africa it represented Orlando Pirates' brand. Thanks for that, Brian. Lovely story. Did he get into trouble with the Chiefs supporters?
Imagine
all the Pirates supporters?
Imagine if the rule was in place and he was punished for that.
Now, that's exactly the point. Absolutely. Okay, more sport from you in an hour.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will on Thursday, 6th of February, deliver the 2025 State of the Nation Address at the Cape Town City Hall. Tune in to the meeting point with Koketso Sachane with a special broadcast from 6 p.m., bringing you blow-by-blow coverage at the 2025 State of the Nation Address. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Don't miss out. Make every day a payday with the guaranteed 1 million rand Daily Lotto jackpot that's waiting to be won. From just 3 rand, play Daily Lotto now for your chance at the guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
You'll love the peace of mind knowing that your older car is protected with low-cost insurance. Without insurance essential, you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. So if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rands. Now add motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. Get savings with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's, and information online.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And don't forget, Sona is 7 o'clock, but at 6 o'clock, when this show ends, we will be chatting. In fact, there'll be a special Sona broadcast on SAFM from 6 onwards, with hosted by Koketso Sachane, broadcasting from the Cape Town City Hall. So looking forward to that, and every reason for you to stay connected here to SAFM. Let's get to the numbers now. Ahead of Sona, Makwe Masilela is the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, there's interesting news, first local and global markets, but before that, in fact, on ArcelorMittal, they're very much in the news, their yearly results.
Yeah, And Ashraf, good afternoon. And the share price is down 10%. We know that the ArcelorMittal has decided to shut down their long business, but they have delayed that by a month. Was supposed to start in Jan 2025 because the guys want to fulfill the higher than anticipated outstanding order book, continue discussing with the government with an announcement expected in the second half of February 2025. Maybe there'll be something there when it comes to the budget speech. Extended operations have been enabled through the funding support of almost 380 million from the IDC in the form of shareholders loan. Sales volumes were down 6%, revenue down 7.3%, and headline loss unfortunately widened by 169%. And yet markets started the session with the expectation that the Bank of England will cut interest rates, and indeed they didn't disappoint. They cut by 25 basis points to 4.5%, with 2 of the members out of the 9 were backing a half a point cut, and markets continue to shake off worries around tariffs, which began on Monday, but sentiment improved after Trump paused duties that's on Mexican and Canadian goods. But market participants' main focus is now on the all-important U.S. non-farm payrolls report tomorrow, and oil prices after falling yesterday because of a large build when it comes to U.S. crude stockpiles, signaling weaker demand from the world's largest consumer. Today prices are up. We see Brent crude is up 0.7% at $75 per barrel, and all because traders are eyeing a new round of Sino-American trade tariffs, including duties on energy products. And the yellow metal paused after a 5-session rally to all-time highs, and that was on tensions over trade wars and uncertainty about the future of U.S. interest rates. But momentum remains upbeat. We see yellow metal gold is down 0.4% at 2,855, but platinum is up 3% at 1,013. Global markets ticked higher with JC up 0.9%, and ahead of the SONA, the rand is flat at 1856. Compared to the dollar, 23.01 versus the pound, and 19.24 against the euro.
The rand is flat. Doesn't sound good. Makwe Masilela, thanks for your time. We'll connect with you again tomorrow. So post the SONA. Right. We're going to get to your calls just now, but there's a big issue around bullying in Gauteng schools right after this.
Assurance, they understand my business. They are so good in terms of communication, which gives me confidence. It's a good decision that I've made to move to Assurance. I'm a winner. I want to be with the winners.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Don't miss out. Make every day a payday with the guaranteed 1 million rand Daily Lotto jackpot that's waiting to be won. From just 3 rand, play Daily Lotto now for your chance at the guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Okay, so we'll get to your audience engagement, very important, coming up just now, right? And more SONA talk, naturally, for the rest of the program, right? But let's talk about this. There's been a story of alleged bullying incident at the Sutherland High School in Centurion. And that certainly has sparked huge interest. There's a video that's gone viral around it, recorded by the mother of one of the alleged victims. Let's find out more about it in terms of what actually happened and where do we go next with Steve Mabona, who's the Gauteng Education spokesperson. Steve, good to connect with you as always here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ash, and to our listeners.
Thank you. Okay, what happened?
Well, we understand that the parent visited the school on the 5th of February, alleging that the child has been bullied at school. So they had to explain the processes to say they will then need to conduct a preliminary investigation so that they can facilitate a process of disciplinary, which will then include both learners, and they must also invite the parents. But the parent could not probably take it because of how probably the interaction between her and the educator, she was not satisfied there, which as a department is something that we are looking at to check on how she was attended to when she was at school. That led to her not being satisfied. So that's what we will be doing, yeah.
And I mean, again, these headline stories of day after day of bullying, I mean, that is a huge cause for concern. I mean, were you able to, I know it's early days, were you able to get into like the context of the context of the backstories around the environment that's causing this within that school?
No, not really on this incident, but understandably the school has not received cases of bullying as per their report, because they even after that interaction with the parent, they issued a communique to parents encouraging them that in the event the child is bullied or there are allegations thereof, they need to be encouraged to report to the school management so that they can then attend to it and make sure that if there's someone that is a problem, then that can be rectified. But as a department, we are concerned about bullying that will happen in our school environment, not only at this school. That's why we will encourage parents to work with us. Let's discipline our children. Let's remind our children that the environment that they are at, it's for developmental purposes, for their future. So we don't tolerate bullying irrespective of any reason around it.
Yeah, I think they all know that, and it's an issue we bring up so often about the home environment, right? But in this case now, so what happens next with this issue?
The parent was invited to come to the school yesterday, and she came today. So there was a meeting between the school and the district officials, which confirmed that there will be a disciplinary process. They are just finalizing the paperwork because, remember, they need to check availability of both parents. They need to participate in the process, and that it's unfolding. As soon as they are done with that, they will then sit and get to understand on what transpired from both sides. Because in issues like this, you don't want to go with one side. You need to hear the other side and then check on remedial. Because this process is not punitive; it's more remedial, and understandably so that these are children, which they must be attended in that fashion. That's why the process of disciplinary belongs to the SGB, which will then be representing the parents and the school management.
Okay.
So we'll give it that chance, so that process unfolds, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, understandable. Let's leave it at that then. Steve Mabona, the Gauteng Education spokesperson. Thank you for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Hi, I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
Amidst misinformation and disinformation, where can we find reliable news? Turn to radio, your trusted source for truthful updates. For over 3 decades, we've upheld integrity as a signatory to the BCCSA Broadcasting Code of Conduct. Count on us for news you can trust. Say no to fake news. Radio, keeping it real since day one. A message from the National Association of Broadcasters. Tune in, trust, and stay informed.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, I'll get to your calls. I mean, here's a nice message. Good afternoon, Ashraf. Don't say Mr. Ashraf, just Ashraf, right? Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm so pleased with your show. Chief, it is so innovative and another kind and level. Keep up the good work, Chief, together with your production team. I rally behind you. Well, there you are. Thanks for the word chief. And no, we're not your chief. We're just, you and I are partners in this daily conversation that we call the National Pulse, right? Okay, let's get to your calls. Anonymous has a view on Trump. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Good show, always.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much, man.
I just want to make a small comment. We as a South African and Africa, we should sometimes put emotion on the side. Just remember, being right is not always being the safest. On the comment on South Africa and Trump issue, let us remember this key factor. South Africa position on Ukraine, America and West were not happy. South Africa, remember the shipping of the so-called shipping of the arms to Russia. You know what happened? America came angry and South Africa had to explain. Remember that South Africa nearly welcomed Putin for BRICS summit. Even though we're an independent country, but we should remember that those people are powerful. Remember, South Africa took Israel to ICC. Taking Israel to ICC, and in the end, the Prime Minister was charged with something like that, arrestation mandate by ICJ. And remember, touching Israel is touching America, whether they come openly or not. South Africa banking up DRC. By the way, I'm from DRC.
Okay.
My first country. Second country now is South Africa. So what is happening in DRC and South Africa, they both affect me.
Well, I mean, I think you raise such an important issue, but here's the point to you, right? I hear what you're saying, and even I've said so because there is a ripple effect around this, right? But then if South Africa sees atrocity, should they turn the blind eye? So because, you see, as I talk to you right now, yesterday, Donald Trump made a pronouncement of an actual move where we will take over that region called Gaza in Palestine, right? Now, many people are angered by that, and I mean across many parts of the world. Now, if South Africa, should they not oppose that because they don't want to upset America, so they just say, it's one of those things? I mean, where do we stop? Anonymous? Oh.
Hello.
I was saying, where do we stop? Hey?
All these points, South Africa action is the right. We are on the right. But I said, being right is not always being safe.
Okay. I hear you.
And I'm saying this also. Remember, when Trump took the first bill signature about PEPFAR, next day we felt it in South Africa. Some NGO can't operate these anymore and so on. And when South Africa decided to cut the funding to South Africa, we felt it. And to the extent that our president had to call, unfortunately, remember the Malema comment, instead of talking to his fellow president, he spoke to Elon and so on. Yeah, it's a way of trying to balance. Remember the AGOA.
All right, I got that. Let's move on now. I think you've had your share and your say, and I think you made a very important point. Thanks for that call, Anonymous. Vuyiswa in Parktown North, go for it.
Yes, Ashraf, thanks for taking my call. You know what I'm picking up, the media, everybody else, people, and you remember you have influence on people. And the problem now people are living in an atmosphere of fear, which is not supposed to be. You know, there's so many African proverbs that can actually teach you that this might be a blessing, in disguise, because there's a lot of also going on in America. All over these, I've been talking to.
So when you say this might be a blessing, which part may be a blessing?
All of it, because you have a crazy man on the top of this the throne of America, whatever empire it is, and all empires they fall, or and then America won't be an exception.
All right, thanks for that.
So we shouldn't be so afraid. Like we feel some people don't sleep,
Okay.
It's high time we think. We must think.
All right. Point made. Thanks for that, Vuyiswa. Thanks for that. Right. Let's get to other issues now. The issue of unemployment came up in the conversation I had with Brian Molefe from the MK Party.
Good afternoon, Ashraf Trevor here. Ashraf, you see the problem that we have in South Africa concerning unemployment. There's one solution. Why don't we get rid of the tender system? That will immediately create thousands of jobs. Instead of one person benefiting from tenders. You understand what I'm saying? And another point, on President Donald Trump and America, we have to be very careful because America is our biggest trading partner.
Got that? I don't know. On the tender part, how does getting rid of the tender system create thousands and thousands of jobs? Because getting rid the tender system, I would have thought that maybe because people feel it's going to certain chommies, right? But how does it actually then translate into actually gaining lots of jobs? I don't know. If somebody can work out the maths, you tell me. Right, the issue of let me get that up again, further comment on the USA.
Hi, Ashraf. American funding. I hope the Minister of Finance is listening. Last year, they gave us about 9 billion rands in support, which is about one department's national budget. Therefore, to solve this problem, let's just reshuffle, redesign our cabinet. Drop by one department, then we have enough money for ARVs and all the health problems that we are getting some funding from America. This is anonymous from KwaZulu province.
Okay, just pause on that because let that position sink into the audience too.
Hi, Ashraf. Since the president will only talk about promising jobs like previously, let me just talk about the celebration punishment. So let's talk CR7, who does a CU celebration whenever he scores. And here in South Africa, we have Kama Billiard, who does the same thing, imitating Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. Then comes me in a PSL match, I do the CU celebration. Will they say I'm imitating Ronaldo, or will they say I'm mocking Kama Billiard? Huh? That won't be applicable here in Mzansi. Thank you.
Well, that's why I think it's a bit ridiculous. I mean, that's my opinion, right? Right. Let's pick up on this story.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I wish Dricus du Plessis can lose his UFC champion this weekend. That guy is such a bad representative of this country. He doesn't deserve to raise or stand next to our flag.
I need to give you some context there. I think that remark, which is unexplained, concerns our Dricus du Plessis, right? In fact, what we do, let's play. So let me give you context. He's fighting this weekend, right, in Australia. And he was wearing a T-shirt about something called Trump Champion. And they asked him about it. Okay, why is this wearing this T-shirt that says Trump Champion, right? And this is what he said.
Dricus, first of all, I'd love to get a comment on the T-shirt you chose to wear today.
Well, yeah, I mean, with, there was after obviously Trump being re-elected, which is absolutely incredible. I think he's an amazing, amazing president. And I've had the privilege of meeting him. And he said this, when with everything going on right now and changes coming, good changes, he's holding people accountable, a lot of countries accountable for everything, and it's amazing to see. And obviously being a champion, he said he wants champions in his team. So that's why, and he said it on X, big shout out to fellow South African Elon Musk for also doing the right thing. And like you said, Trump prefers champions.
Well, I prefer champions too. In fact, I talk about building champions or building a champion nation often. So I'll be okay with that part. It's the earlier part about Donald Trump and saying he's doing good things, like a blanket statement that he's making at a time where Trump is not just commenting about other countries, he's actually commenting about his own country. And then ditto Elon Musk. I just wonder whether that's appropriate. Some may say that he's just not reading the room. Others may say, well, under freedom of expression, he literally can say and do what he wants. That's the great strength of South Africa's democracy. But do you find it now suddenly awkward to listen to him? I must say, I saw it last night, and I didn't feel nice. I didn't feel nice at all. Okay? Right, here's another one about the SONA. Let's get to that here.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. It's Kanya from Flagstaff. I don't have much expectation of the SONA because it's the same old empty promises, the unfinished project and the austerity measures that they have taken. So I don't see any difference from watching the SONA tonight. So the last time I watched the SONA in full was in 2018 in the era of Ramaphosa and the New Dawn. But I later discovered that we should stick to our old Vaseline because this New Dawn seems not to be good for our bodies, or will never be good for our bodies.
Okay, and of course you can't go 50 minutes nowadays without somebody saying something about AfriForum. Let's do that.
From Ashraf, this time from Bloemfontein. I said it before that AfriForum should be held accountable for this. They should be charged for treason. And am I allowed to go to the nearest police station and open a criminal case against the AfriForum, or it should be someone that has political influence or power?
No, but there's rule of law in this country. You can do what you want. There's an equality. So can you go? You can do what you want. You can actually go to the police station and lay a charge. My understanding is, I think from a treason point that you bring up, it's either to overthrow the state or to have a clear intention of assisting someone with designs of undermining your country. It's difficult to prove, by the way, I think, okay? But, hey, listen, there's nothing stopping you from going, and you don't need some high-profile personality to do the same thing for you. That I can assure you. Talking about people of prominence, Tony Leon, we chat to him tomorrow in the Friday Fireside Chat. We do this every Friday. We get a person for an hour, and we talk to him, and we pick their brains about a range of very topical issues. So we'll do the same with Tony Leon tomorrow. It's 5 o'clock. Let's get the news with Greg Hose.
Thank you, Ashraf. ArcelorMittal to provide update on closure talks in the hottest January on record. Good day to you. ArcelorMittal South Africa set to announce later this month the outcome of ongoing talks with government to save the long steel business from closure. The company's delayed the closure of its plants in Newcastle and Vereeniging by a month after receiving funding support of 380 million rand from the Industrial Development Corporation in the form of a shareholder loan. The extension of operations will also allow for the fulfilling of orders for the automotive sector and other key customers. CEO Kobus Verster.
And we are also clear that we will not take any further financial losses and risk to the extent that we do not get a sufficient solution by the end of the month. It's actually almost mid-month because, as I said to you, you're stopping things 2 weeks earlier before the real stop date. They need something more. They need to come up with a solution for that. The company is not going to fund that.
Some residents in Polokwane and Limpopo are calling on President Cyril Ramaphosa to address the deployment of the SA National Defence Force in the DRC. He's delivering the State of the Nation address this evening. 14 South African soldiers were killed in a battle between the M23 rebels and the DRC army in Goma 2 weeks ago. The Minister in the Presidency, Kumbutsa Ntshabeni, said that the government has updated the families of the fallen soldiers regarding the process of repatriation. Some of the residents say the President must provide more information.
What were they doing? My question is, what are they doing in DRC? I do not understand their mission in DRC. My question is, what is the delay for them to be repatriated? It's been 2 weeks. How do you arrange the funeral when you have nothing to bury?
Politicians and invited guests are starting to arrive at the Cape Town City Hall, where President Ramaphosa will deliver his State of the Nation address. This will be his first SONA delivered as head of a government of national unity. Some parties who are not part of the GNU, like the leader of the National Coloured Congress, Fadil Adams, says none of the promises of the previous SONA have made a material difference in the lives of the poor.
The President brought the DA into his GNU and told us that this was to take the country forward. The DA has fought against every progressive legislation brought forward, the Ballabo, expropriation, even the NHI. Everything that is going to drag our poor people out the gutter, the Democratic Alliance is fighting against, and the President says he's doing it for us. We aren't expecting a thing from this man tonight. This might be his last SONA, so we are here out of respect.
A man has been sentenced to 2 life terms in prison in the Polokwane High Court for the rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl in Jane First in Limpopo. The NPA's Mashudu Malabizang.
The Limpopo Polokwane High Court has sentenced Kgopotso Motse Goma of Mamone Village in Jane First to 2 life-term imprisonment for murder and rape of an 8-year-old girl. In 2019, the deceased was sent to buy cigarettes by the accused at the local shop, when the accused took her to his friend's house and raped her and further strangled her. The NPA welcomes the sentence.
Police are investigating a case of double murder after 2 men were shot and killed at Motherwell in Nelson Mandela Bay in the Eastern Cape. Police spokesperson Sandra Janse van Rensburg says they responded to a complaint where they discovered a car with bullet holes and the bodies of 2 male occupants inside.
At this stage, the motive for the attack remains unknown and no arrests have been made. The Provincial Serious and Violent Crime Investigation Unit is pursuing all leads to establish the circumstances surrounding the shooting. Police are appealing to anyone with information that could assist in the investigation to come forward.
European Union scientists say the world has just experienced the hottest January on record. It had been expected that the weather phenomenon known as La Nina would have a cooling effect. Instead, last month was the third hottest month ever recorded. Climate Service Deputy Director Samantha Burgess.
So by far and away, the largest contributing factor to our warming climate is the burning of fossil fuels. So the increase in greenhouse gas concentrations in our atmosphere, and any natural cycle or other natural variabilities such as our sun cycle or volcanoes, they have a very small influence of the climate that normally has quite a short-lived signal as well.
The top story, ArcelorMittal South Africa set to announce later this month the outcome of ongoing talks with government to save the long steel business from closure. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gous.
In sports this hour, Paul Royals win the toss and opt to bat first against the Sunrisers Eastern Cape in the SA20. Sundowns welcome Club World Cup trophy to Africa, and Surrey to appoint independent financial advisors to plot the future. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Afternoon, starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg queuing towards Crown Interchange, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillies Interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road, and Solomon Mhlongo Drive eastbound in Pretoria has a crash reported near Delphi Avenue. In KZN, the M4 northbound queuing towards Virginia Airport, the N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle reported near the Sabai Drive exit, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, Darling Street is closed between Plain Street and Bakencrest Street until midnight. Hanover Street is closed between Tennant Street and Darling Street until midnight. Corporation Street is closed at City Hall until the 20th of February due to National Parliament events. Longmarket Street is closed between Plain Street and Batencrest Street until midnight, and Parent Street is closed between Spin Street and Darling Street until midnight. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Don't miss out. Make every day a payday with the guaranteed 1 million rand Daily Lotto jackpot that's waiting to be won. From just 3 rand, play Daily Lotto now for your chance at the guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old and play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Okay, we know this now. You love your older car, right? So why not protect it with low-cost insurance designed, well, especially for older cars? With Outsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Now add motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns, and you're in a better space then. Get saving in this case with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187. License, insurer, and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, don't forget the State of the Nation address happens at 7, but to build up to that, there'll be a special SAFM broadcast from SONA, presented by Koketso Sachani, so that comes from 6 p.m. today. Don't miss that one there, right? Okay, In the meantime, I'll also tell you two more takes on the SONA. We'll chat to Brett Herron from the Good Party in a moment. We'll also then chat to Tsepo Matseba, the MD of Reputation First. And what we're interested in is the two things from the president. The way he delivers his State of the Nation address, does it work? And then the actual content used, keeping in mind with SONA, your audience is not just the people in that hall, in this case City Hall, but it's the entire nation, if not the whole world as well, isn't it? So we'll get to that just now. Let's start with Brett Herron, the Secretary General of the Good Party. Brett, good to connect with you. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you.
Thank you. We're doing a runaround of different parties and interest groups looking ahead to the SONA. What are your expectations?
Well, this is the first State of the Nation address in our democratic history where the president and leader of government is not the leader of a majority party. And so this is a State of the Nation address that will be delivered on behalf of a coalition government, the Government of National Unity. And what we would expect to hear is how the President and the Government of National Unity intends to implement the program of priorities that the 10 parties who signed the Statement of Intent agreed we would implement. And if we do implement those priorities that are in the Statement of Intent and in our agreement, we will fundamentally change South Africa. So I'm really looking forward to hearing how these things are going to be implemented.
So therefore, I would think if it was the president of the African National Congress, he would then refer to his own party and be very clear about, crossing the T's and dotting the I's about what can be actually delivered at the SONA, right? In this case, has he done the same thing with all the parties that make up the GNU?
Well, he's consulted with all the leaders. They also had a meeting, the party leaders had a meeting earlier today to discuss.
I saw that, yeah.
So it is a State of the Nation address on behalf of a Government of National Unity or a coalition government. So I think it is going to be slightly different, and I expect that the tone and the opportunity for the president is to build on some of the positive sentiment, both domestically and internationally, that the Government of National Unity has been enjoying.
And are you therefore privy, from your party in terms of what he's actually going to say on important issues? You may not tell us what it is, I understand that, but are you privy to what's been agreed upon?
Yes, obviously our leader, Patricia de Lille, was in the Leaders Forum meeting. Yeah. And so the State of the Nation address was discussed with the leaders. And she's informed me more or less. I haven't read the speech, but I know more or less what will happen tonight. And I think that it will be very clear that this is a State of the Nation address being delivered by the leader of the government, but who is delivering it on behalf of 10 parties who form that government.
Mm-hmm. So, in fact, you are saying, therefore, we will hear it, the type of SONA address that we've never heard before. And the tone would be the type that we've never heard before.
I think so, and I think it will be a tone that will be hopeful and optimistic, and focus very much on the crises of poverty and how we will address that by turning our economy around and growing employment. So it's going to be an economic focused address, I would imagine. Given what is in the Statement of Intent, that would make sense.
And what about what has overshadowed everything else in the last few days, which is the influence of the USA vis-a-vis our foreign relations with them and what we do domestically regarding land issues?
So, I'm not sure if the president will address whatever led President Trump to make the announcement that he did. But obviously, our foreign policy may, for the first time at a SONA, be an important component of the speech. And we know that the United States position is influenced by what I would call bad faith players who've spread and generated disinformation about the Expropriation Act. And if the president is going to address it, I assume and hope that he will dismiss and refute the disinformation and reassert that South Africa is a constitutional democracy. All of our government decision-making is subject to the Constitution, and there is no room in our Constitution or in our constitutional democracy for irrational and unreasonable administrative or political decision-making. And if he asserts that South Africa is that kind of country and we're not some rogue nation, I think he can certainly address the concerns that some of our foreign trade partners may have.
And therefore, would you suggest that you'd want him to be assertive in asserting that position?
I would like him to be asserting South Africa is a sovereign nation with a constitution, a democratically elected government, and all of our lawmaking and all of our administrative decision-making powers are subject to the Constitution, and therefore no South African and no foreign government and no foreign investor needs to fear irrational and unreasonable decision-making. And if he can emphasize that, I think that would help.
Just the last thing, I mean, from where you sit, I mean, the benches have changed. I mean, as we said, I mean, we chatted to Brian Molefe earlier, the MK party, and now the official opposition, right? Would you expect President Ramaphosa's tone, therefore, to be conciliatory to the entire house that makes up parliament, those that are within the GNU and those on the outside? Or would you expect and maybe hope for an us and them scenario, meaning that ultimately, parties also jockeying for positions for the local election, and then what happens with the next general election?
I think that, I mean, if anyone, I don't know President Ramaphosa very well, but I mean, I've observed him for a number of years. And his style is to find consensus. So I would be very surprised if he takes a line that doesn't try and bring people in and closer, even if they are in the opposition and maybe are inclined to be hostile. So I would imagine that he's going to be focused on nation building rather than trying to score points against opposition parties.
And just the last thing, something I put forward to the audience yesterday. What for you is the one word to describe the state of the nation as it stands? Just one word.
I think we're a nation that's in crisis, and the crisis is a crisis of poverty. And unless we address that, we are in for a really rocky future. So I would say we're in a nation that is in crisis. But tonight is an opportunity for the president to start addressing how we're going to turn that around.
Okay, from crisis comes opportunity. Brett Herron, let's hope you're absolutely spot on about that. Thank you for your time. Brett Herron is the Secretary General of the Good Party. Thanks and best wishes for tonight's State of the Nation address. Right, in fact, further thoughts that you may have in terms of we've spoken about environmental issues. We spoke about now just from the MK party as an opposition to the Good Party, part of the GNU. We've spoken about the issues of labor, and I think unemployment is a big deal. But what for you would most surprise you if the president said a certain thing? Is if he says something, and it's difficult to speculate, but if he made a certain comment that would absolutely shock you, it may not disappoint you, it could actually please you, but it'll absolutely shock you. Let me give you context. What was it, 1990 or was it 89 when we then had it was 1990, wasn't it, when then Prime President of the country of apartheid South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, certainly for all of us, just shocked us about those sweeping changes that he had made overnight, including the unbanning of all the different political parties and the release of Nelson Mandela a couple of weeks later. So what for you would absolutely shock you if President Ramaphosa said a certain thing tonight at the State of the Nation address? This is the National Pulse.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than you microwaving your leftovers. Realizing they're still cold? Giving them a second chance. Realizing they're still cold? And eating them anyway. Because you've already committed to it. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, we have further comments that we have from you, so keep them coming. But let's do this. Let's get to the position that we spoke about earlier about just sticking on the delivery of the State of the Nation address. You have a president, and I'm talking about Ramaphosa now, but it could have been somebody else before that, and there will be others down the line. What would be the tone that's most appropriate for a president, considering who is his audience? That's the tone. And then the type of messaging. And I'm saying that because I would think that the messaging that is delivered publicly may not be the same type of messaging. You're having a Zoom session, which they had today at the Leaders Forum, by the way. There's pictures up on Twitter. Check the Vincent Magwenya as the president's spokesperson, effectively posting about that, right? So let's get the thoughts of Tsepo Matseba, the managing director of Reputation First. Tsepo, good to connect with you once again on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Great to be here.
Much appreciated. Right. So let's get to that then. First of all, the tone. We'll get to the content just now. What type of tone should a president adopt when addressing the nation, as President Ramaphosa will do today?
I think the expectation, at least at this point, is that he should retain, and we can expect that he will retain his normal posture, which has a combination of facts, storytelling, and humor. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should go back to Tinswalo. I hope, for goodness sake, that we don't go there. But I think that his methodology of using the platform and telling stories through that platform, it actually works. And then especially in the context of the diverse group of people that he's addressing and the diverse group of people that he's representing in the form of his cabinet, that at least at that level, he needs to be a bit tread carefully. I think that he will tread carefully. He has always not been a confrontational leader, and we know South Africa is currently facing a barrage of global criticism when you look at the activities that happened as a result of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Kagame. And so the expectation is that at some point he needs to be firm and direct, but he needs to retain his personality and his posture and can keep to the optics that he uses often, because those optics have worked for him. He does have charm, whether you like him or not. And I think that we can expect that he will be maintaining that charm and appealing to the audience, the diverse audience.
And by nature, he's not fiery, right? You say he's got charm, but you don't expect a fiery address from him. And that's consistent to Cyril Ramaphosa, isn't it?
Yes, no, absolutely. I mean, you don't expect him to be fiery or aggressive in a sense. I think that he will deal with the issues, he will specify the issues, he'll choose words very, very carefully, but his non-verbal cues are always neutral to more positive and optimistic, even though, even previously, even under serious attack from the parties such as, for example, the Economic Freedom Fighters, he would remain calm and his posture. I think he lost it once towards one opposition party MP when he said something a bit, which was a bit, in his personality, a bit extreme. I think he said, "Shut up."
Well, that person is his partner in the GNU now, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I doubt that his persona and methodology is going to change. I think it's going to be the same, but message might be more considered and far more diverse, because he'd be trying to appeal to more people than when the ANC had the majority.
Okay, what about those that say that, yes, I think maybe the neutral tone is good because it shows it's unemotional, but sometimes it does come across as pretty, monosyllable type of sound and rather dull, and we don't want that. We want someone who's a lot more chatty. Can he be chatty in delivering a sona?
I mean, the opportunity he has is that there's commitment, at least from other his previous opponents, the EFF, that they will not disrupt the sona. So he can actually charm, but he can actually be a little bit more firm as well, so that you can get the seriousness of the tonality of the job at hand, especially when you address sensitive issues such as our foreign policy at the moment, and importantly, when you address issues such as gender-based violence, violent crimes and other matters, and youth unemployment. And you can't do that by being flamboyant or too sweet and too kind. At some point, you have to demonstrate that you understand the veracity of the issue and that you have the capability as a leader to address those issues effectively.
Yeah, that's true. What about the type of clothing he wears? I mean, I think of Donald Trump, who only ever wears a red tie, right? It's classic. That's his standard. Does it matter what Ramaphosa wears?
No, absolutely not. But at least at the very least, you hope that the people who are assisting him help him to. Firstly, he will always say that he wears local suits, but that those suits must fit properly and not be slightly oversized, as we may have seen before. So you expect that he must look like a gentleman. And recently he's been doing really, really well. And moreover, the kind of tie. Probably not a major issue because he has worn different types of ties, but we hope that he actually avoids the stripes on suits because that's the advisors in the fashion industry tell us that's not necessarily the way to go. But he's a decent gentleman. He dresses politely. I think that he needs to make sure that the story that he tells us about the suit he's wearing or the tie that he's wearing, that it's real, so that it's not an analogy. Because people will go and check whether this specific designer is around.
I think that's very important.
Actually worked on
it. Let's talk then about the actual content, right? So yes, I mean obviously you're not privy to the content unless you wrote his speech for him, and I think one can predict some of the things he has to talk about. But what wonders is, you know, if you had to ask your advice, what would you leave out and what would you include as a must, considering again who he's addressing today?
Yeah, I mean, the must include, and I'll start there, the must include the issues around land expropriation and what it means in practical terms, and the context around it from historical days, the Act and when the Act was enacted. I think that context is important so that he's quoted appropriately. He needs to articulate the government priorities. In the past, in the Mbeki days, we would talk about the 5 key priorities of government. He needs to tell us what are the key priorities of this government of national unity and ensure that at least within those you address crime and corruption, you address the logistics crisis, and you address how you are going to maintain a viable energy supply so that we don't have the situation where we are surprised by Eskom with load shedding. And then importantly, there are fundamentals around youth unemployment, and that's a huge thing because when young people are unemployed, you actually create a space for them to start thinking about doing other things and minimize the number of young people who are sitting at home doing absolutely nothing, meaning they are not in education, not in employment, not in training, and not in skills development. Those are a dangerous context. So I think that's some of the fundamentals that he must include. Importantly, he does need to touch on the painful situation that happened in the DRC, the loss of lives. I think he needs to address that and take the nation into confidence about what exactly is in place in terms of ensuring the safety of our team that is in that area, but in any other deployed in any other area in the world, to show that whenever we send a team out, there's capability and that there's a strategy and there's a plan and that there are resources behind, and that plan is articulated without necessarily giving away the secrets of the nation.
Should he respond?
Necessarily, if I were him in this specific one, what I wanted to avoid was not to engage Elon Musk and Donald Trump in this specific one.
Okay, you've just taken my question away. You say no, right? Why not?
Yeah, because the minute you go into that, you are going into the mudslinging, and they don't have rules. They're using Twitter as a mechanism to engage, and as a result, or X as a mechanism to engage. And as a result, they might actually dilute the message. So we're talking about those two might dilute the message that you actually want to deliver to citizens and to stakeholders and investors around the world.
Okay.
So I see that as a by-the-way factor on the sideline, and we should leave it at that because most of it is based on fake news.
Interesting. Other analysts are saying that he must address it. He absolutely has to. Okay. The other thing, very quickly as we wrap up, is you spoke about stories at the outset, and I think when he was inaugurated as the president for the very first time, he spoke about Tumamina and the New Dawn and providing that sort of image. And then last year he gave the example of Tinswano. Remember that, right? How important are those images and whether he's throwing in a name that can give life? It's something that's not abstract.
Yeah, the methodology is very, very important in talking to everybody. So when you tell a story in that fashion and assign it to a personality, and that personality is most probably like Tinswalo, imaginable and can live within different types of communities in South Africa and different eras, it gives him an opportunity to talk to everybody and to be understood. And because in communication, the best method to win your audience is to be understood the first time. And for him to be understood the first time, he needs to use the symbolic, practical stories. And those stories really, really work for him as a narrator because also he has a sense of humor, but he speaks very well.
Okay, got that. Let's leave it at that. The last words on that, he speaks very well. I wonder whether others agree. Tsepo Matseba, thanks for your time. The MD of Reputation First. Much appreciate the input that you've got ahead of the State of the Nation address, which happens at 7 p.m. this evening. Right, what about, by the way, you know that we're going to have a live broadcast on the entire SONA, which starts at 7 o'clock, but the build-up, not this show, but the build-up for that in the special broadcast will be hosted by Koketso Sachani coming up from 6 o'clock. Do not miss that, right? There's some questions. Tami from East London saying, Ashraf, I will only be shocked if Ramaphosa will repeat what he said about Trump in 2018, and this time really mean it, so that South Africa and the rest of Africa can be free from Western influence from, rather than saying Mayabuye, Africa. So there you are. Well, I tell you what, that, and we played that sound earlier on, where he's like literally doing the repeat of what was done with Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe, with London, with England, saying, to Tony Blair, you keep your England, and he was like telling Trump, you keep your America, and we'll be here in South Africa. Is he likely to be as strong? And I couldn't believe how I won't say articulate, I think how strong he was in that address of 2018. Would he say the same thing again? Seriously, I can't see that happening. I think the businesses will say, you're mad. You'd be crazy to do that. 5:30, let's get the news headlines. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at the headlines. ArcelorMittal South Africa set to announce later this month the outcome of ongoing talks with government to save the long steel business from closure. The Western Cape Premier's calling on President Ramaphosa to prioritise urgent structural reforms to fix all ports of entry and the rail network. And the US President Donald Trump has insisted no US troops will be needed as part of his proposal for the US to take over Gaza after resettling more than 2 million Palestinians. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Johannesburg, the N1 southbound in Walter Park has a stationary vehicle reported before 14th Avenue exit. The N1 southbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Buccleuch interchange, and the N1 southbound in Pretoria has a crash near Rigel Avenue. In KZN, on the M4 crash at Lelusha, queuing traffic both ways. The N2 northbound has a crash before Prospection Road exit, and the M4 southbound queuing towards the M7 highway. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road, and the M5 northbound slow moving towards the N1 Koeberg interchange. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Chumi, SA20, there's a game on in Pretoria today, right?
Yes,
Centurion.
and it actually just started. The Paarl Royals won the toss, and they opted to bat first against the Sunrisers Eastern Cape. Up for grabs is the Betway SA20 final spot, and it is qualifier 2 at Supersport Park. Royals have had a tough patch after becoming the first team to secure a playoff spot, and they have suffered 3 consecutive defeats, very desperate for a win today, while Sunrisers, on the other hand, they won over Joburg Johannesburg Super Kings in the eliminator and now are 1 win away from a place in their third consecutive final. Still staying with cricket, the CSA Executive for Domestic Cricket, Edward Khoza, believes that the Federation's groundwork to grow the women's game is finally yielding positive results. This is after the SA Under-19 women claimed a silver medal at the 2025 ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup in Malaysia, where they lost back-to-back champions to champions India.
Definitely, I think through every journey that we embark on, this is also confirmation that our strategies are in place, and that and as the players goes and conquer the world and reach finals, it just also solidify the work that has been done in relative to the various phases of our programs. And when you look at a person like Thabiseng Nini, for example, whether you look at Karamo Meso and all that, where their journey started at the hub environment, because we need to appreciate that the footprint for girls is not similar to the one of the boys, where you have established cricketing schools and all that. So we rely heavily around the hub program to solidify and make sure that they grow the space of what we're dealing with around the ecosystem.
In football, Banyana coach Desiree Ellis has named a squad of 22 players for a training camp during the upcoming FIFA Women's International break later this month. None of the regular senior players have been called up, while the overseas base players are not considered neither. Banyana will face Lesotho in 2 friendlies during the 10-day period to assess up-and-coming players, also just to give them a taste of the senior team's training and tactical expectations. Meanwhile, Ellis has invited 8 goalkeepers for a specialized camp from the 15th to the 17th of February, and that list will be trimmed down to 4 who will join the rest of the 22 players for the rest of the training camp. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns have become the first club to welcome the Club World Cup trophy to Africa. The new trophy is on tour around the world to all the countries that have representative clubs before heading back to the host nation in America. Today the trophy is at Kloorkop, then tomorrow it will make its way to Semi-Mark Square, and Saturday to Loftus Stadium, the D Field. I was actually reading a tweet or an ex, someone saying, imagine not being a Masandawana fan at this time.
Because they're winning everything.
Because they have the Club World Cup trophy here in South Africa. Yeah. In the meantime, Brazil defender Marcelo has announced his retirement from football at the age of 36. The left back, one of the most decorated players in history, played 58 times for Brazil. And after coming through the ranks of Brazilian clubs, Fluminense, Marcelo joined Real Madrid in 2007 at the age of 18. He won 25 pieces of major silverware in 15 years at the Bernabeu, including 5 Champions League titles and 6 La Liga titles. In rugby, the South African Rugby Union will appoint a financial institution to review the rugby's financial ecosystem. This is according to the union's membership, who decided at a General Council meeting today. Members mandated the Executive Council and management to initiate a new process following the failure to reach the required 75% majority of a private equity investment proposal by the Akerley Sports Group in December. The first step in the new process would be to appoint the financial institution through an independent selection process to advise members on all aspects of rugby's financial sustainability and the role that a potential private equity investment might play. Finally, in tennis, Emma Raducanu has received a wild card entry into the Qatar Open, which is the first WTA 1000 event of the year. The British number 2 reached the 3rd round of the Australian Open before being beaten by Igor Swiatek, and now she is looking to do better in this one. With that said, it is a wrap from my side.
By the way, so Brian Mabaya spoke about the player. Remember Caleb Binenyama, right?
Yes.
So now he's saying, spoke about showing like the buck sign because that was of Burundi, and he's saying, I'd like to correct myself about the player scoring. It's not the Soweto derby. I think it was against SuperSport United. My apology to Tumi and the sports desk. But I mean, the story remains the same, excepting
it's still interesting.
Where it's different, of course, if it was Orlando Pirates, then you have a situation where it was the Buck supporters like, he's transferred to us. That would be significant. Okay, thanks for that, Brian. Much appreciated. Right, so that's your show.
I'll be back tomorrow.
You're watching the Sona?
Yes, definitely. We all have to watch the sauna.
No, we have to watch.
You're a South African.
So any choice, even if you thought of copying out, even if you're watching the SA20 game in St. Julian, you have to watch the sauna between overs, something like that. Okay, we'll connect with you tomorrow. You better say your goodbyes.
Our story is a South African story.
Anchored in the belief that it takes all of us to build a country that thrives.
To educate our children for a brighter future. To care for our health and well-being.
To nurture our environment to sustain future generations. And to transform and build a stronger nation.
When no one is left behind. Inspiring each other to succeed. Anglo-American.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, normally I'd say Jimmy Moya hosts the SFM market update from 6 to 7, but not today. But it doesn't mean he can't give us the market updates as it stands now, right, Jimmy?
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. Markets closed rather in positive territory. I'm looking at after-hours trade because they do still trade in the U.S. and in particularly looking at it today because of the State of the Nation address that's to follow. It looks as though we are dangerously close to all-time highs on the top 40. We're just shy of that 80,000 points mark. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that going into the rest of the evening following the State of the Nation address to give us a bit of an idea of what the U.S. markets could potentially be making of what the president will say. Obviously, we'll get reactions going into Asia session overnight and in tomorrow's trading day. But for today, we do have some positive movements. We are closing out in positive territory, and that's always a good thing when we look at the market movements. Let's start with Asian markets. They were all in the green. European markets were all in the green. U.S. markets at the moment are also largely in the green. The Dow, the only index kind of in the red, but that's also quite marginal at this point. When we look at the performance of the all share, a good day there as 0.2% up there, 0.9% up on the top 40. Financials leading the charge there, 1.4% or so up. Industrials 0.2% up, and resources 0.5% up. The rand also holding its ground, performing stronger against the major currencies. 18 rand 49 cents against the US dollar. 22 rand 94 against the British pound, below the 23 rand level, and 19 rand 16 against the euro. One Australian dollar will cost you 11 rand and 59 cents. One Bitcoin will cost you 97,100 odd US dollars there. With a quick look at commodities. Gold price $2,846 an ounce, almost 1% weaker. It was at some stage about 1% weaker for the day. The Brent crude price $74.79 a barrel, below that $75 a barrel level. Platinum stronger at $1,020 an ounce, and palladium sitting at about $995 an ounce. So, as I said, I'm going to be watching the State of the Nation and perhaps seeing if the rand does react in post-market trade, because the rand doesn't close like some of the equity markets. So there might still be a bit of movement there, and we'll see what tomorrow shapes up like and what the week is out like. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. And of course, you have no show, 6 to 7 tonight. That I know, right? But we will do it tomorrow, right? But don't forget, there's a special broadcast. That's why Jimmy will not be hosting the SAFM Market Update. And that broadcast is the Sona broadcast hosted by Kuketso Sachani. So listen out for that from 6 o'clock to 7, taking in the entire speech. And then I would gather there will be obviously the reaction. What it means now is my time to talk to you as part of the audience engagement. So what is it you're going to tell me? What's been moving the national pulse today? I understand there's been a delay regarding the repatriation of those fallen South African National Defence Force soldiers from the DRC. That I understand. We'll see if we can get an update on that story too. What do you want to talk about? What do you make about that whole Dricker story coming up with a Trump T-shirt about Trump the champion, and then effectively speaking in favor of Donald Trump, saying he's doing good things, including Elon Musk at a time. And I know what Dricker has said before, but at a time now in this week in this country, although he represents himself in Australia, but certainly the aspirations of South Africa. Any thoughts on that? But of course, the SONA must come up too. So let's connect about all of that and more on the National Pulse.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, lots of voice notes that I want to pick out on, and thank you to the many people who are trying their best to keep them around 30 seconds. It really helps us get as many voice notes or voices out as possible, really.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the team, and also SA listeners. Ashraf, I'd like to see what Mr. President will say about the SNDF soldiers who are there by DR Congo, because my cousin is still lying there in the hospital there. Now I'd like to hear what he will say, how long they'll lie there, when they are coming back, because they are injured. They are injured very, very bad. So I'd like to hear what Mr. President will say about that. Thank you, speaking here. In Hama still, Malanga Township.
Well, thank you for that, and I'm so sorry about your cousin, still lying there. I'm so sorry. I mean, that's just the reality of being, a soldier in a war, I would gather, isn't it? Right, there's a further comment.
SFM listeners, good evening. My name is Tulani Nzima in Croydon. I do not think the management of ArcelorMittal are prepared to save ArcelorMittal. Therefore, it's only prudent that the government elect to buy ArcelorMittal so that jobs and the economy can be saved from whatever bloodbath that might come with that particular decision that seemingly has been taken, because they are even refusing to take any financial assistance. To me, it simply means that they are no longer interested in fulfilling the mandate of ArcelorMittal. Thank you.
Okay, but government's got no money to buy ArcelorMittal, do they? They don't. They don't have money for so many things. That's why one of the things you want to see, this talked about today, is public coffers and how do we raise more money. And as has been discussed earlier, maybe more public-private collaborations, because at this point in time, the government does not have the money.
Afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Well, I wish Mr. Trump was the president of South Africa. We are not going to have this chaos of exodus of foreigners all over Africa flooding South Africa. Imagine Zimbabwe alone 6 million. How do you cope with so many foreigners just in one country? No wonder South Africa is going down the drain.
Okay, you really think so? Not just South Africa, but that Trump's got everything right in the USA in spite of some of the things he's even pronounced in the last few days. You think he's just spot on? He's decisive. Doesn't mean he's right if he's decisive. AB in Durban, go for it.
Hey, yeah, how's it, Ashraf?
Yeah, very good indeed. What's your point, AB?
I'm trying to make sense of Donald Trump. He accuses our government of taking the land away from white people. In the next breath, he says that America will take away the Palestinians' land. That's Gaza, of course. Secondly, I'm also trying to make sense of his slogan, Make America Great Again. I'm intrigued by the word again. The question is, when exactly was America great? America has fought 152 wars, toppled government he didn't agree with, smashed Iraq to smithereens based on lies for which Bush should have been taken to The Hague, and also Obama for his drone murders. As a leading commentator in the United States, the well-respected Professor Noam Chomsky said, the U.S. is the greatest terrorist in the world. So is Trump trying to make the U.S. a greater terrorist? I think there's a silver lining to all of this. Trump's bullying tactics may prove to be a double-edged sword. In trying to inflict damage on other countries, he may well do even greater damage to his own country. That is my sincere hope anyway. It's shocking that the U.S. supported a genocide and now the overgrown baby is supporting ethnic cleansing.
Well, as has been discussed, but maybe your only problem is, maybe why do you even try to make sense regarding the mind of Donald Trump? That could be your biggest mistake, because you can't. I mean, seriously, there's been so many contradictions. By the way, on that issue of I saw that slogan, "Make America Great Again." I must tell you, that was the exact slogan when he stood for election the first time. So it may have worked before, and let's just say that in spite of what AB has said, that America was a fabulous nation, then you can understand why he would speak to that audience and say, "Make America Great Again." But then taking over again 4 years later suggests that he didn't succeed the first time round. I always found that in terms of communication slogans, that was like a bit of a mismatch. I certainly did think so. Right, there's another comment about Trump.
Afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. I wish Mr. Trump was the president of South Africa. We are not going to have this chaos of exodus of foreigners all over Africa flooding South Africa. Imagine Zimbabwe alone, 6 million. How do you cope with so many foreigners just in one country? No wonder South Africa is going down the drain.
Oh, I played that one twice. My apologies. But, okay, your point emphasized. George in East London, go for it.
Yes, I just want to talk about the GNU and the DA. Okay? Yeah. I think everyone in South Africa, they were so much excited and they were positive about the GNU. But as things progress, you can clearly see that DA is opposing anything which is going to make everyone equal. It's opposing the land issue. It's opposing the health issue. It's opposing the education issue. Now, it's time for South Africans to smell the coffee and open their minds. Because now, imagine now DA in power. How much are they going to do negatively to the disadvantage on the people of this country? So, South Africans, let's wake up. DA is not good for South Africans. It's good for a minority of people. Thank you.
Okay, but some may say the same about the ANC too. You know that, right? And when you say everybody was happy about the GNU, that's not true. Some people were thrilled. Others are questioning it then, and they're questioning it even now, by the way. Right, here's another comment on the SONA.
Ashraf, last time our president on SONA, he didn't say anything about 350, known as 350, but it's 370 now. He just keep quiet after Minister of Finance says that on March this year, there will be no more 370. So I want to hear today to our president that what he will say about this 370.
But maybe not. I mean, I don't know. But maybe it'll be left for the budget speech that comes up, in 2 weeks' time. So maybe that's what happened, right?
Ashraf, is Robert telling Jimistin. I think the government is signing the expropriation bill to make more damage on the community of South Africa, because look at now, the cities are filthy. All the cities are filthy. Why they don't create a job by cleaning those cities? Even Joburg have no water now, no electricity. It's dangerous. It's dire situation there. I thank you.
Okay, but that's one of the biggest issues, dealing with the water crisis in South Africa. This is the National Pulse. I'll take more thoughts, more calls, more engagement with you after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Reigning champions and rock leaders Masanda Wana have a massive task to deliver maximum points to Korkop.
but the Buccaneers are eyeing the top spot. They want to paint the capital city in black and white. Miguel Cardoso is up against Jose Rivero. Ukhono Zokhala. This is the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 8 February at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Right, choosing something to watch shouldn't feel like a full-time job, isn't it? Scrolling, second-guessing, and then landing on the same comfort show, well, just to dodge that what you started without me story. Our chat with Bay is something that's actually faster than choosing a show. Getting your car covered online with Santam. It takes just 2 minutes, that's it, 2 minutes, to switch. Visit santam.coza. Santam, this is freedom.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, and there's more comments from you, so bring them coming. We'll certainly have time for a few more calls too, particularly if you've got some really interesting thing to say that it just that get us all thinking ahead of Sonar. But whatever it is you want to get off your chest, right? Here's another.
Hi, Ashraf. About Sonar, there is nothing serious that will come out of Sonar. I know most of the black people, they know. After the funeral, we always have the family meeting where people are making promises that they are not materializing it. It's the same as Sonar. We are still waiting for a mall that the president promised. But till now, there is nothing. So you can see that the Sonar story is just something that must happen, but there is nothing serious out of it. This is Jacob in Mokopane, Khakapi.
So Jacob, you're very clear. Like nothing is going to come out of it. Okay, absolutely nothing. Here's another one, also on the Sonar.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. For the red carpet on the stage of the national address, they must just cancel it. Any budget that they need to spend it today, they must just cancel it. Just imagine, our kids are going to school from January to December. There's no red carpet for them. They're not spending anything. They're just having more hours in school. Just 3 hours of Sonar. They want to spend a lot of money for what? Brenda by Project Land. Thanks for the great show, Ashraf.
Thank you. But I mean, I'm certainly not for, extravagant spending, but they must spend some money. I mean, clearly, because the Sonar is a reflection of effectively brand South Africa. It is. So they need to spend some money. Can't they? Shouldn't they? Tapiwa in Cape Town, let's get your thoughts. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Asha.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, I don't know why is the war, the conflict in DRC has been there for years now. Mm-hmm. We can get back maybe to 20, 30 years back. Why is it the whole continent or the whole region has to babysit them? The population of DRC is over close to 100 plus million people. They can't turn 40,000 just men and women to fight for their territory. What is going on there? What's going?
Well, I mean, I think, as you know, there's just so many discrepancies. The one end, it's like, no, Rwanda's interfering. The other's like, no, the South Africans who died at the hands of DRC soldiers. I mean, it's just very, very confusing. But what's sad is that there's unrest in that region, isn't it? And that means lives are lost. And that's no good.
Them a fish that they can eat for today and be finished. Let's teach them how to fish. I think that is the best way to do it. They have to protect their territory. They must fight for their land. Not to say everyone has to go there and fight for them.
Teach them how to fish. Got that, Tapiwa. Thank you for that, right? Somebody asking a question about saying, play the Dricker sound again. So let's see if we've got time. Maybe we'll play it, right? Here's another one on, and I'll see if Phineas can line it up. Here's one on crime.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm looking the president maybe to speak about the soldiers in DRC and also speak about the crime. Actually, we are really in deep crisis of crime in South Africa. Maybe I wish the president will talk about the crime and speak deeply. And when he speak about the crime, he must emphasize the solution, how to fight with crime. Thank you so much, Mr. Ashraf. This is Shiban Masemola from Ekurhuleni, original Mpopakasikukuni. Thanks so much.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. Crime is... It is crazy. There's no way anybody can come and defend to say this crime is normal that we face. Not at all.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, DA and AfriForum, they are saying ANC is treating them bad. Very, very bad, like what Trump said. Let's say ANC is voted out of power. Which will be an option for DA, a party that will treat them better in South Africa? Which one? For example, between EFF and Umkhonto, which one? They are praying ANC to lose power. If ANC lose power, which one is better for them? Name from Brixton.
Well, maybe they'd want to be in power themselves. Every party, small or large, has got, aspirations that enough people will vote for them, isn't it? That's why they start these political parties, so I think.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Sakile Ntsogwini from Kamhlabyaningan. Ashraf, I wish President Ramaphosa could respond to Donald Trump the same way he had responded to him in the clip we have just played. Thank you.
Well, again, there's some hope. Some people are hopeful about Ramaphosa, and what you expect. Here's another one we can play, and maybe time for one more.
I'm so disappointed in Dricus. I mean, to openly disregard and diss your country of your birth and openly speak so badly about your country on when he gets the opportunity. You see, for me, I don't find that as that's a champion. For me, it's an embarrassment. I have no time for people like that who openly do that to the country that gave you birth, and I really don't. I'm very, very, very disappointed.
Well, you speak my language. I think you are right. I think let's be clear. You can be patriotic, but you can be critical of your leadership. You can. I'm patriotic. I love my country, but I can list 20 things that's wrong in the country, and a lot of it's got to be with the leadership of the country. But you don't diss the country specifically and say, well, this whole country is not my country or something like that. And to now elevate another, and actually saying Trump is doing good things at a time where he's just knocked your country, and you know that a lot of what he said has actually is off the mark. It's not true. I'm not saying he didn't bring up the issue of expropriation, but the way it's been put forward is not true. And here he is, a few days later, wearing a T-shirt, knowing he's going to get a response. It is disappointing. I would have serious difficulty, seriously, wanting to hope that he brags about his country and wins on at the weekend, on Sunday morning or Saturday night.
Hi, Ashraf. It's the first time I'm hearing that Dricus comment, but it genuinely doesn't surprise me. Roland Schoeman also tweeted something along the same lines. And many of our cricketers or former cricketers, national cricketers, share the same sentiment with regards to the country and things like transformation and all of that. So it doesn't surprise me at all. The same heroes that we worship. Yeah, there we go. Ibrahim, Cape Town.
Well, don't worship the heroes, Ibrahim. Just worship God, whichever faith that you follow. I mean, that's what I feel. I've never worshipped anybody besides God. But here's the point, right? I think that is an important point, that people can be critical. You can say, I have a problem, but you can't then effectively be anti your country. There's a huge difference. Okay, that's the show. There's a special broadcast running up to the Sona that starts at 7. That starts now. But before that, let's get the news with Greg Host at 6 o'clock.
Thank you again, Ashraf. ArcelorMittal to provide update on closure talks and awaiting this year's Sona. Good evening. ArcelorMittal South Africa set to announce later this month the outcome of ongoing talks with government to save the long steel business from closure. The company's delayed the closure of its plants in Newcastle